What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. We're at number 209. Hope you had a great week and a reasonable Friday. I'm Marty, your co-host, and joined every week by the best co-host in the business. How you doing, Alan?
I'm doing well, and I hope people had a better than reasonable Friday.
This age, reasonable it's fine. Reasonable is good. Don't rock the boat.
We'll take reasonable this week. It's been one of those weeks, I suppose.
Yep.
But no, doing good. Hope everyone else is doing well as well. The chat's filling up. Good to see familiar faces and some other folks too. Hope everybody enjoys the show. We got a lot to talk about tonight. But Marty, before we bring out our very, very cool guest, any things that you would like to go over with folks?
Let's see. Mail order for Bindrune is getting caught up. Panopticon CDs are about half out. I got another 100 more packages to stuff this weekend, and Monday everybody should be happy. Everything will be happy. Heavy Metallurgy front, we got the patches still available. Come and get one for your jacket. They turned out really sweet, and that's really it. We got a gentleman waiting in the wings. Wait, what about you, Alan? You have anything that you've got going on or want to talk about before we get Albert on?
No, I don't believe so. Just working along, chatting with folks online, putting stuff on Let's Talk Metal, and just spinning stuff in the background while wrapping up, exams and all that kind of stuff too. So nothing big to report here. So let's not make the man wait any longer.
Correct. Well, let's get him out here for his third time on here. Three's a charm. How you doing, Albert? What's been going on?
Marty, Alan, I'm doing well. The usual's been going on. But yeah, things are good, man. Things are good. How about you guys?
Doing all right.
Doing good. Plugging along.
Thank you for taking some time to hang out with us tonight.
Always a pleasure. I come armed with a 19.2 ounce beer, which I think will get me through the first 5 hours of this. And we'll
we're just gonna have to go through each album grind style, 40 seconds each.
Yeah. We're gonna have to slip in a few suffers in here.
This is Diatribes, but why?
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, and we know you've been super busy. You just got coming down from the high that I'm sure is a Decibel Metal and Beer Fest here a couple weeks ago. Everything went well.
Yeah. Last
I've
month,
heard good things from folks about it.
Yeah. I hope we work real hard on it. So I hope
you put on a good. I was only at the first one, and for the first one, it ran smooth. And it was great. I mean,
you're gonna have a reason to go to Denver in December that I can't really divulge right now. But I can make a pretty compelling case for you to come to that one. But the Philly one, this is our 8th one that we just did. And yeah, it was a blast. They're always a ton of work, but always super gratifying. I like to think that if you thought the first one ran smoothly, I think the 8th one ran incredibly smoothly, at least from our end. Because you know how it is. It's like people attending an event, they might think it runs smoothly, where on our side it might be a complete shit show. But as long as they think it's, as long as that illusion is preserved.
The illusion, yes.
Yes. But from our perspective, it was really smooth and makes me excited to get into the next one, because it's like, you figure out some stuff every year, and you just can apply it to the next one. And it's cool doing one in Philly and one in Denver, because then you could try stuff out in one location, and sometimes that works in the other, and it's all that kind of good stuff that you trial by error. But after you've done, I guess, 14 of them, you hopefully have fewer errors than trials. I don't know.
And it becomes an established fest too, so more and more bands want to sign on to it. I'm sure the booking end of it probably gets a little bit easier too, maybe as you get more established doing this. Or is that an insane comment?
It's a logical comment, but the truth is that, I don't want to say you run out of bands, but when you have a festival, you try not, we haven't repeated any headliners in Philly after 8 years, and that's been that becomes more and more of a challenge to kind
Yeah.
of serve that, because you really want to keep it interesting for people who come to all of them. In my head, it was like, if we get to year 10, then maybe I can, I can break out a repeat headliner at that point. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's definitely challenges. The climate is a little dicey at the moment, but it is what it is. You work around it, and
Yeah.
everybody's got challenges.
Right on. Metal and Beer Fest and the Paradise Lost book is back in business again.
It is back in business, and it is here, and it's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Nice.
Very cool.
It is. We did we put it on better paper. We gave it a brand new cover, gold embossed finish, and
Nice.
It's got we gave it the cover stock has this like kind of almost leathery kind of texture to it. When you pick it up, it's like holding a Bible. Now it's really cool. And there's a color section in this one that was not in the original. Well, that photo is not color, but there's a pretty photo section in it featuring many color photos. So yeah, that's up for pre-order now, and we'll start shipping within the next couple weeks. And then, I can probably slide this in here for anybody who's listening who might be attending Maryland Death Fest. We will have it there, and I don't know what time it's going to happen yet, but we will have Nick and Greg at our table doing a book signing also.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it should be really cool for folks. And we got gold Sharpies. Make sure everything
Nice.
everything is on point. So yeah, that's our newest thing, and I'm sure there's other things I'm not thinking about right now. But and the Decibel tour wrapped up a couple weeks ago, so already working on the lineup of the next one for because that's how it goes.
All the irons are in the fire.
Yep.
All the irons in all the fires. Yes.
Yep. Y'all have the immolation book out too, and folks have been enjoying that one. I've heard good feedback on it.
We do indeed. Big fan of this thing. Kevin Stewart Pankow absolutely crushed it. Original Andres Marshall cover art
Killer.
that he did.
That's cool.
Tie it back to the first couple records, and this book's been flying. Really stoked on it. We still have the Scott Burns book, which is in its third pressing now. Only been out a couple of years. We have our version of Dial Patterson's black metal book, which is our version is almost 800 pages. It is massive. This goes from killing insects to killing rodents. It's serious shit. So yeah, those are some of the book things going on. There's, as you guys know, there's one in the works that's coming later this year, which is going to be bonkers. I can tell you a little bit about that later on, but yeah, so that's the basics, I guess.
Sue Verica and John Verica interviewed Alex Books. For Heavy Metallurgy, we got the interview up, and there's a little blurb in there and a link to the book too.
Nice.
Go check out the interview, folks, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
Turned out good.
Yeah, this is John's comment on screen right now. He's 0.
Oh, nice. I won't spoil the ending. John.
And they lived happily ever after.
Right on. And of course, the flagship of all of this, the magazine that launched it all, the latest issue of Decibel is on a stand near you if you're not subscribed, or link in the description to go buy a copy online.
A very squinty pelican.
Yep.
Very sunny day for that shoot.
Yeah, no one likes getting their picture taken. No one likes it. So
No.
Except the people in that one EP you showed the other day, Marty. What was that band?
Ice Howl. The picture of the inside, all of them are smiling like it was and I'm like, they didn't get the memo. No smiling in band photos. No shorts, no smiling. Come on. But anyway, we've gathered here today to see our friend Albert, of course, and he mentioned maybe doing a dive on Napalm Death, as he's going to go see them here in the days, and knows them quite well after all the years of cooperation and whatnot. And Napalm Death. Why was that? Was it just because you had a show coming up here thinking about it, or do you just?
I mean, I don't know if it's. I don't think it's a big secret. They're one of my favorite bands.
Definitely.
So they're one of my favorite bands. They're very easy for me to talk about. And the fact that I was about to go, I'm going to see them Sunday, Baltimore. And I have not seen them in a minute. So I just kind of got to thinking about it when you hit me up. I was like, hey, this planets aligning. This might be fun. Because it's a band with a lot of different eras, a lot of different sounds and styles. And people are very opinionated on a lot of, people have very strong opinions on very particular eras of that band. So I thought they'd kind of be a fun challenge for everybody.
And I gotta say, it's been a hot minute since I've listened to Napalm Death. I thought I had bigger holes in my collection than I do. I don't have the last two full lengths. The new EP, we're not really ranking EPs this time, but that was the first I listened to, and holy crap. It's just they sound, after all these years, they sound more apocalyptic. They're so good. They've improved as a band over the years. They've always been good, but it's just like, we'll get all the schematics and talk about our opinions on their evolution as they've gone on. But for some reason, I was under the impression from a few live things I watched that Barney's voice was kind of toast, but it's not. He sounds more urgent. And, I don't know. The new EP, I was really kind of blown away by it. A couple covers on there, a Bad Brains cover, and can't remember the other one, but very impressed. And then I did not own the two albums previous to that, and I'm just like blown away at how good they've gotten. It's really impressive.
Yeah, they still sound urgent and unhinged and experimental, but without disappearing up their own asses. Like, it's like, pushing things in a very, very noisy direction. There's it's obviously metallic and there's plenty of metal in it, but it's obviously, when you listen to it, it's not just that at this point. There's a lot going on.
What were your thoughts, Alan? See, I was surprised you wanted to do this. I didn't really know how extensive your interest in Napalm Death was, to be honest.
Well, it kind of lined up well for me too, because about, 6 or 8 months ago, I started digging into more of their catalog. I mean, I knew the older, first handful of classic albums, of course. But yeah, I completely lost track of them after Fear, Emptiness, Despair. Not consciously, just, fell off my radar. Hmm. But Jeff Wagner and Hunter Ginn did an episode on the mid and late 90s phase of Napalm Death, the logo-less era of Napalm
the wilderness years.
Yes. Yeah. No. And they did maybe like middle of last year or so. And it was really interesting. It's the first time I'd heard some clips from most of those albums. And I was like, okay, there's a lot more here than I knew about. So I've been kind of slowly working my way through the catalog a little bit more. I still had a chunk of homework to do this weekend on some of the newer material in particular. But yeah, I'd been kind of familiarizing myself with them. They were just, I have this list of bands that I've never dug into sufficiently. And when Radical Research did that episode, I'm like, okay, I think it's time to start crossing Napalm off that list. So I don't know nearly as much about them as, you guys do, but I at least know the catalog well enough to hang in and chat with you all tonight. So it was good timing for me too, since I have been checking out more and more of their albums over the past 6, 8, 9 months.
Right. And I got to say, it was a lot of fun refamiliarizing myself with this band, because I've had a good chunk of their albums, but they fell off the radar for me too. I don't know why. I always liked them. It's just, I had ideas in my head of the way some certain albums were, and coming back as a much older guy and listening to them again, my opinions have changed on some of this stuff. And I remember during the heyday of Maniacs, when I was getting a bunch of promos, all the promos of the logo-less era, I'm just like putting the stuff on, and I always liked it, but it had, dare I say, an aura of commercial metal. It seems ridiculous to say that with Napalm Death, but there's some really slickly produced albums, and
Colin Richardson gave him the Machine Head treatment here and there. Yeah.
They did 100%. And intro into experimentation, though very bold and kind of pioneering and ahead of its time, it really felt like Greed Killing, for example. That song is it's bouncy. It's got a pop aesthetic to it. It's just, as a young man getting that and hearing it and being like, what the hell? I mean, they never went full on Cold Lake here, but it's just amazing how they've kind of nurtured that spark and made it uglier as they've gone. It'll be cool to get into this catalog here and document their evolution for sure. But
yeah, just even seeing people's comments in the comment, like it's all over the place, which is exactly what you want for this.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, folks are mentioning a lot of different albums, and especially among the newer 21st century part of their catalog too. Folks are calling out all kinds of albums, so it will be interesting. One thing I want to say before we get in, that's just kind of weird to think about at this point in their career. Everyone, of course, always associates Napalm with Earache, but we are now at the point where they have released more albums not on Earache than they did through Earache.
Cool. Maybe they'll get some royalties then. That's great.
Yeah, but there's there are 8 Earache albums and 9 non-Earache albums. So we're kind of past the point where they could be considered an Earache band.
Yeah, I if you want to and you don't want to, but if you want to be alarmed by the passage of time, like I was just thinking about this the other day because I went and saw Carcass with Cannibal Corpse and Meshuggah or whatever, because they played a fucking casino near me.
Cool.
So yeah, I went to that to see Carcass because I'd not seen Carcass in a minute, and like it kind of dawned on me that bands like Carcass and At the Gates, and I'll make this a quick tangent. They have been like now active bands longer in their second acts than they were in their first acts.
Yeah, that kind of thing's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't want us to go down that road, so I'll reroute. But that's just, when you mentioned the Napalm thing, I was like, yeah, man, everything's wild. So
indeed.
Your band has made it when your old label turns your album art into puzzles. Just saying. 5,000 piece from Enslavement to Obliteration puzzle. That brings the family together. It's
without the consent of the cover artists.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why all the covers have changed.
Yeah, you get oven mitts when one says from Enslavement and the other says to Obliteration on it. You've made it.
Man, well, Father's Day is around the corner, so
the idea farm here. We're rolling.
I want to drop a little Easter egg early, but Melissa has Father's Day. She has zeroed in on something for you for Father's Day. That's
okay.
I am not allowed to say anything more than that, but Melissa's tracking something that's going to be pretty interesting.
All right, my imagination's running wild. So,
you will not see this coming, sir. You will not see this coming.
Right on. Well, I guess what we should do is really quick. We'll access the Wikipedia, and just for anybody that may not know, Napalm Death are an English grindcore band formed in Meriden, West Midlands in 1981. None of the band's original members have been in the group since 1986, but since Utopia Banished, the lineup of bassist Shane Embury, guitarist Mitch Harris, drummer Danny Herrera, and lead vocalist Mark Barney Greenway has remained consistent through most of the band's career. From 89 to 2004, Napalm Death were a 5-piece band after they added Jesse Pintado and Mitch Harris as replacements for guitarist Bill Steer. Following Pintado's departure, the band reverted to a 4-piece. And we're just going to go from there. It's funny. Someone in our Discord server put up the family tree of Napalm Death because Alan's like, we'll discuss lineup changes and stuff. And it was a paper, it just completely plastered with people. I'm like, you know what?
I'm pretty good through like basically the fear or the From Enslavement to Obliteration demo onwards. I'm pretty good. But when you start getting in like the 82 to like 84, when they were kind of punk bands, it's no.
Yeah. Okay, well, we might as well get started. First off, here is 1987's Scum. Essentially 2 EPs kind of slathered together. We're going to start with you, Sir Albert, and your thoughts and ranking when you're all done.
Okay. Jeez, thoughts on Scum. Okay. Jesus. I mean, Scum was like that would have been the third Napalm Death record I heard. Because growing up in the US, the first record that really dropped here would, for most fans that they would have heard, was Harmony Corruption. And we're not going to talk about this tonight, but the Death by Manipulation comp, which had the Mentally Murdered EP and the Suffer of the Children EP and something else kind of tacked on. But like, yeah, so Scum was a walk back. And first time hearing it, it has a really kind of dated sound. It has a really weird guitar sound. It's not a very metallic guitar sound at all.
It's a very punk sound. I was surprised. I haven't listened to it in a while. It's very punk.
Yeah, I mean well, obviously we should start with the fact that Scum is essentially two different albums, recorded by two different lineups. The first half, the side A, that's the Justin Broderick, Nick Bolan, Mick Harris side, and that is definitely kind of the punkier, a little bit more kind of anarcho-punk influenced musically. Obviously lyrically it's pretty consistent throughout, but it's more like kind of the hardcore stuff comes in, like from bands like Siege, Deep Wound, stuff like that, like basically the American like proto grind fastcore bands, and some Celtic Frost riffs, and in a lot of ways that's the formula that they'll appropriate for many years going forward, developing it, adding different elements to it throughout. But yeah, Scum, that side A, that's what I hear. I hear like a lot of punk, a lot of Frost riffs mixed in there, like obviously Scum, that the big breakdown, that's a big old Frost riff, and then the B side with the what some people kind of view as the classic era lineup of Napalm, with Bill Steer, Bill Steer on guitar, Lee Dorian on vocals, Shane Embry on bass, and obviously Mick Harris, the one constant between side A and side B. That is a more aggressive sounding side of the recording. It's faster. It's maybe a little bit more, it's less catchy, maybe a little bit more unintelligible in some respects, but it's more extreme, and it really kind of serves as a bridge to the next record, which we won't talk about right now. But to me it's almost like between Scum and From Enslavement to Obliteration, there's like 3 records there. You know, and to me that's like the side B is almost a record in between Scum and From Enslavement to Obliteration. But obviously the record's a goddamn classic. There's songs obviously they still play. Scum they'll play all the time. You Suffer, if you want to count that. I noticed they hadn't been playing The Kill lately, which is wild since they've probably played that like a billion times. But yeah, Scum, prototype for grindcore, for pretty much as we know it. Whether it's the first grindcore recording is debatable, I guess, if you want to talk about if you want to talk about Repulsion's Slaughter of the Innocents demo, and that has a pretty strong case. But the first grindcore album to make a global impact, that's the one.
Yep. Right on. Well, in the pantheon of 16, I did not rank the Leaders Not Followers. It's
Agreed,
a full length, but I didn't because it's covers. But out of the 16, where do you put this one?
I have Scum at number 6.
Right on. Okay.
Number 6.
Alan, Scum.
All right. Yeah. It's the classic, of course. Yeah, and it's one of those albums that just about everybody knows and gets a ton of respect, even for folks that maybe aren't huge grind fans or huge Napalm fans. I was literally talking to somebody this afternoon about it. He's like, hey, what are y'all doing tonight? Like, we're, Albert's coming on. We're talking about Napalm. He's just like, oh, I hate Napalm Death, except Scum. And he was like, there was a pause. And he's like, well, but Scum is actually really cool. I can't deny that one. So, yeah, even folks, who aren't into the band recognize, that this was, a huge album. It obviously, spawns a million different bands in a lot of different styles, which is really cool. It's the album, I've played the most. It's the one I've had the longest. So there's more sort of, nostalgia, sentimental attachment to that one compared to the rest of their catalog. Just for me personally, it wasn't the first Napalm record I got, but it's definitely the one that's gotten played the most over time. And yeah, it's, this just weird album that it shouldn't exist. I mean, the first side was literally just a demo that... was it Justin or Nick that had the demo? It had already left the band. The band was essentially gone. He didn't think anybody wanted it, and he just kind of gave it to Dig.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "Hey, here you can just have this. I guess the band's done. Nobody wants it." And then, of course, yeah, as Albert explained, the B side as a completely different lineup, put together after the fact, and just even at that point, it probably should have come out. Been some kind of cult underground thing, and maybe that been the end of it. But it ends up in the hands of John Peel, who gets attached to the You Suffer track. And, that's, I don't think in the US we can quite appreciate what a big deal that is, because we don't have that kind of national DJ that, can really command the entire nation's attention on radio the way that Great Britain did with John Peel. And, he takes that and, he raises Napalm to a level of visibility that it's just wild the way it played out. And obviously it worked great for them. I'm glad it did. But, if you looked in 1,000 other parallel universes to ours, there's not a single one where that chain of events ends as well as it did in our universe, which is just really cool. I completely agree with Albert about the Frost vibe, especially on the A side, is really cool. And it's why I do like the A side a little bit more than the B side. The B side's quite good too, but I love that big, crazy, Celtic Frost Hellhammer kind of vibe they've got going on with the A side. So those are my thoughts on Scum. For me, I've got this one ranked quite high. Like I said, it's the one I've played the most. I put it at number 2 in the Napalm catalog.
Wow. Okay. Right on.
But yeah, and I'll freely admit, again, there's a bias there just based on, have had it, played it, heard that one more than any other Napalm album easily. So Marty, your turn to take a crack at Scum.
I can't remember if this is the second or third Napalm album I heard. I From Enslavement to Obliteration was my first. Then I might have gotten Harmony Corruption and then went back. I don't remember how it went, but it's been a hot minute since I've spun this. And putting it on this week, I had it in my head that it was a mess. And side A, I really, really prefer Nick Bullen's voice over Lee Dorian's on side B. He's got more of a punky, raspy. It sounds like they listen to a lot of crust punk. There's elements of grind on here. There's actual songs here. When you get to side B, the shock and awe of the quick blast songs, it's funny, cool, it's a thing, but it's more of a gimmick. It's more of a and it really I prefer the songs with more intention than just the people would say gimmick, or I don't know if gimmick is the right word here. I don't want to put in my notes. I don't know, but it's like I just prefer more songs here. The heavier. That was a novelty. I don't want to say gimmick, novel. We'll say novelty. And it was more of a shock and awe live going up there and doing that. Gets the crowd like, what? Whoa! It's drink, and it's. But I was really surprised. Side A, I really like the production. It's very organic. It's very punky sounding. It sounds like a good kind of lost, forgotten punk record. But there's some grind elements on there, and that is the right mix for me. You get to side B again. They go for the novelty. Lee's voice. I like his screams, but his lower it seems very forced and strained, like he's struggling to do that. I don't really think he really came into that voice until the Mentally Murdered EP, but we're not going to be talking about that much here tonight. But yeah, for me, Scum, it's obviously iconic, and it's been really cool. I'm going to be saying that a lot tonight. The light's been turned back on Napalm Death for me. There's, I'll watch them on YouTube every once in a while, and their concerts pop up. Someone shoots their concerts on their phone, and I watch them. Like, yeah, they sound pretty cool. They're good still, but it was fun to sit down and listen again, because I have kind of been estranged from them for a while for no reason. I mean, I've seen them a bunch over the years. They're always great, and they're a great band, and I like what they're about. And I just, it was a lot of fun listening to this album and being reminded, because in my head, like the first Carcass, that is always going to be a shit mess. Mm-hmm. I love the early era of Carcass, but I can't listen to that one because it's just a mess. This here isn't as messy as I thought it was. It's actually very cut and dried, and side 1 is produced very well. Side 2 is not so great, but yeah, it's a number 8 for me. I think I'm copying off of Frosty's paper already here in the chat, but yeah, number 8. I thought it would be lower, but it's not. So
that's cool. Yeah, I agree with your point on the song lengths too, Marty. For me, especially on side 2, the better tracks are the ones where they get if they clear the 1 minute bar, the track tends to be a lot better than the ones that stick to the 30, 40 second mark. And I'm always impressed with how much they could pack into 1 minute. When they gave themselves a minute 20, a minute 40, it's there's, several quick little changes in here, and it, comes together as a really cool song. The 30, 40 second ones, they just don't have time to do much more than, one thing with. So you
get time to establish a riff or an idea,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was a good point about the song lengths on that side.
And really, and if I was in the band back then, I would have said, look, let's all these, novelty songs, the You Suffer, and let's save that for live only. Let's put our longer songs on the recordings, and then sprinkle these smaller ones in. Anyway, it's either here. I wasn't in the band. I didn't have that say, but I get it. And a lot of people like that stuff, but it just seems kind of pointless to me. But what do I know? I'm just a fat guy in Northern Michigan. So here we go. We are going into 1988, from Enslavement to Obliteration. I see Albert was readying his LP. I'll let him show that.
Yeah, here you go. Here you go. Here's your first pressing of
nice
Enslavement to Obliteration.
Killer cover art.
Yep. Yeah, you get the different colors. Some, I think, in here is
that one didn't come with a puzzle.
No, this one came with a bonus 7-inch, if I recall.
Actually, yeah, the original UK pressings have that.
Yeah, the live EP. One last Scum thing. I'd be remiss if I didn't point this out. Cover art by Jeff Walker of Carcass.
Yep.
Just, interesting little.
He was very talented.
Talented dude. Yep.
Yeah. In that department as well.
I still is. Yes. So Fido, as it is commonly known for people who would like to avoid so many syllables in an album title. As I kind of alluded to in the Scum discussion, Fido is really kind of like side 2 of Scum, but fully realized in my mind. Though we won't talk about the Mentally Murdered EP, even though this is the second or third time we are going to talk about it. But that they would take this formula and really kind of push it more in a more death metal direction on that one. But this is that kind of sweet spot moment of, I think, total grindcore as it would as the legacy of grindcore would be cemented in people's minds. When people would talk about, what's a grindcore album, honestly, from Enslavement to Obliteration is where you might as well start. Obviously, Scum is the genesis of the band entering the consciousness of just the general music buying public in the 80s, but the fucking gauntlet for what the template for grindcore is, I think, really happens on Fido. It's got better production. That's the first Colin Richardson one, I believe. First time he works with them, and he definitely cleans up the sound. Again, it's so fucking fast still that there are times where the clarity is difficult to capture. But there's still big ass riffs all over this record. Obviously, Lucid Fairy Tale, Unchallenged Hate.
Those are the two I wrote down my notes as the faves. Yeah, those are
from Enslavement to Obliteration. Like, these are big songs. These are classics. They're still in the set, or at least occasionally still in the set. But yeah, to me, this is, and again, it's the lineup from side B from Scum that continues over. And it's just them really nailing what they did. I think Lee's vocals are improved on this one. I know that kind of like crazy gorilla sound that he had going on was definitely an acquired taste, but Evolved is one, like when he's screaming weak ones, like he sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah,
on that.
That's
and
for me is one of my favorites on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think everybody's performance is on point. And yeah, to me that's like I said, I don't want to belabor the point, but that's kind of grindcore 101,
Right on. Where would you put this in your?
Oh, I keep forgetting.
That's okay.
I have it at 3. I have it 3 on mine.
Man, they're gonna throw rocks and garbage at me when I say my ranking on this one. All right, Alan.
Albert's hit the big points. Production much better, musicianship much better. They're tighter. You can tell that the lineups had time to kind of gel. Everyone sounds good on here. And I think this is, if you wanted to look grindcore up in a dictionary, this is probably the picture they should have next to the word. For me overall, one thing I like on this one is just the opening track. Evolved as One is weird. It's not what you expect coming out of the gate.
It's got some swans in it.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with swans, but it's whenever I look at reviews and stuff for this album, it's like that's one that gets mentioned a lot, and it's just like just this big, heavy, monolithic, dark thing. It's just like the first time I played, it's like, is this the right record? Is the wrong record in the jacket or something? That's not what I'm expecting at all, but it's awesome. I fucking love that song, and it kind of foreshadows that Napalm's not going to be a band that will just do 30-second grind songs, forever and ever, that they're going to do some different and weird stuff that can turn out really, really cool. After you get past, that, of course, they grind away for most of the album. So production's better, playing's better. You've got an awesome, unusual lead track. For me, I have this one ranked just a couple of steps lower than Scum. I've got this one at number 4. It's a little bit lower because, again, I have not played this album nearly as much as I've heard Scum. And this one, while there's a lot of good songs on it, at least at this point for me, sometimes several of the songs will kind of just, blur together. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's another cool one. Blah, 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 blah. Here's another cool one. So I feel like maybe there's just a tad less variety than what you get on Scum. But again, part of that's the fact that you've got 2 different lineups featured on Scum also. So number 4 for me, a cool album with just a monster lead off track on it.
I feel like based on Marty's reaction to where you rank this, his ranking number is going to start with a 1. I have a feeling
it might be a 2-digit number here.
That's a 2-digit number. Yeah.
I guess it's time to find out.
Well, I will say regarding this album, my opinion on all of the stuff that I have by them, my opinion on this one has changed the most over the years. I find myself every time I would put it on listening to it. When I was younger, I got it, the novelty of it, the blast stuff. It was like, it felt new, it felt fresh and exciting, but re-listenability just isn't there for me. And I think the production is really weird and not in a good way. I mean, like Scum, the first side of Scum is kind of like a perfectly sounding organic punk record. This one it's like there's distortion in the guitars, but not much. It's a very bizarre guitar sound, and Lee's voice to me on it's questionable here and there, but I really do love the Evolved as One intro. Like I said, it has that Swans vibe, that plotting, just kind of droning it into your head. Weird production I talked about. I'm going through my notes here, sorry. yeah, for me, the production always on this one was a bit of a challenge to fully embrace it. But you got Lucid Fairy Tale, Unchallenged Hate. They're definite standouts on that. There's some bangers on this album. There's some well-written songs, and the longer the songs are, the more they have time to establish an idea, put some heaviness in. It isn't just the quick bursts. The longer songs are definitely up there for me. Yeah, the 30-second grind stuff, it's more novelty than substance. I don't know. This one for me, looking back on it, I was really, after listening to Scum, I was like, I can't wait to listen to From Enslavement. It's been ages. Put it on, and I'm like, ooh, they never got better throughout the week. So it ended up on 14 for me. 14th place.
14th.
14th.
You're in Austin's zip code there, son.
Yeah. We did a ranking with Austin from Panopticon and Ben and Roger, and Austin was at Blaze in the Northern Sky was number 16.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
you're taking some of the heat off your business partner there. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way it goes. I mean, like, there's some great classic stuff on there, but I don't need to hear the quick blast songs. It just doesn't appeal to my. It's probably good for my lame attention span, but I need it, get around the 2.5-3 minute mark for Napalm. And this era, the songs are better. There's just something to chew on there, Anyway, which brings us to, we'll move along here since the chat is starting to revolt. 1990s Harmony Corruption. There it is.
There it is.
And
there it is in LP form with the bonus live album from June 1990.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty wild. I can't remember if the live album is essentially the live Corruption recording, or if this is pre. I think the live album is actually, it would be pre Harmony Corruption material. So it'd just be like the first two records and the EP with Barney and the Harmony Corruption lineup. Anyway, so yes, this is my first Napalm Death record. You want to talk about records at the time where you kind of reassess as in the sober light of adulthood. That might be the one for me. I worshipped it. It was my favorite forever. I thought Napalm Death playing death metal was what Napalm Death should do, and where they were, what they did the strongest. But as time went on, it became clear to me that that was not the case. That they do a really great job of it. But I guess before I get too far into it, we should talk about the big lineup shift that occurs with this record. After the Mentally Murdered EP from '89, Lee Dorian and Bill Steer both leave the band. They are replaced on vocals by Barney Greenway from Benediction, a fellow Birmingham resident. And then, curiously, two American guitarists, Jesse Pindato from Los Angeles, who was playing with Terrorizer, and Mitch Harris from Las Vegas, who was playing with Righteous Pigs at the time. They were all tape trading pals, so Mick Harris was kind of the engine that kept the band together through that period and reassembled it and basically put a lineup together that wanted to make the grindcore version of Death's Leprosy album. So what they did was they went to Morrisound Studios in Florida and had Scott Burns record it in 1990. Sounds like the formula for all-time greatness and success, and there are certain moments.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right? You're right. This is the way I would draw it up, right?
Yeah.
And there are certainly moments on this record that hit that. If the Truth Be Known, Malicious Intent, obviously Suffer the Children, which is, I don't think it's a stretch to say that that's their signature song at this point. Like, I don't think they could survive a show without playing it. It's the one that kind of has endured in a different way than maybe everything else on the record. Like, when they play it now, it doesn't sound like a death metal song, but it sounds like a death metal song on this record. So that's kind of a testament just to just how well constructed it is that it can survive and evolve just like the band would. But yeah, the recording of it, and it's been discussed in Choosing Death. It's been discussed in the Scott Burns sessions. It's definitely a fraught recording experience where Mick Harris clashed repeatedly with Scott Burns, who, if you have read the Scott Burns book, you'll know he's one of the most affable human beings alive. So you have to be a dick.
So nice.
He's a nice, super sweetheart dude. Yeah.
You really have to be a dick to kind of like clash with him. And Mick Harris, he got there, man. So it's really a weird record where the sound is just kind of odd. Like I think they were unable to articulate to Scott exactly what they wanted, and it sounds cool and it sounds unique, and I love it. But like it's weird looking back on it now, knowing how they feel about it, that it's just kind of not what they envisioned it to be. I think it's in Choosing Death where they're listening to the final mix of it in Scott Burns's truck, like outside the studio, and Mick Harris is fucking bummed, telling him that he wanted, he's like, this doesn't sound anything like, these other death metal bands. I want it to sound like this. It doesn't sound anything like that. And it doesn't, but like, it still sounds unique. And like, as far as a debut performance from Mitch and Jesse, I think they sound awesome. I think Barney's voice is like in its most Cam Lee indebted as it'll ever get. In
That's yeah.
And I think it's a really interesting snapshot in time, and I still love it. And I can listen to it front to back. But I think in terms of where it fits in the overall pantheon of their canon, for me, it's like right in the middle now. I have it at number 8 on my list. And, probably when I started writing Choosing Death like 20 plus years ago, it would have been like, number 1 or number 2. But that's, again, they've recorded a lot of records since then. And, the perspective that I kind of have on this album now, between talking to those guys so much and spending a lot of time with Scott Burns and talking to him, it's interesting. I mean, I love it. It would probably be one of my favorite albums from any other band, but Napalm have a lot of bangers, so I got it at 8.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, all good points, Albert. My relationship with this album has changed, and this is the one revisiting for me this week has changed the most. Historically, I wasn't nuts on this album, and mainly just for the production. This was one of those albums where I felt like I had to listen through the production a bit, and it's widely been noted. Yeah, I think a lot of folks agree. It's not necessarily one of the best, productions that Scott Burns did. I like a lot of his production. He obviously, really revolutionized how to record death metal. But this album was always kind of hard for me to listen to. It always sounded very muffled, kind of flat, and kept me from getting into it a lot. Playing it this week, this was one I very much wanted to revisit and be like, okay, do I really not like it that much? Or maybe has the times changed? Played it once or twice. Like, yeah, it still kind of sounds kind of crappy. But I've played it in a couple of different stereos, and on some it sounds better than others. So there's something going on there. It's like, okay, with the right setup, this actually started to click a lot better. Things I noticed with it, it's kind of Napalm's most death metal album. They go through a death metal phase, but to me, this is the one that sounds like a classic, late 80s, early 90s death metal album for sure. Barney sounds great on it, and I'm glad you brought up the Cam Lee comparison, because that definitely stands out a lot. For his debut performance with the band, he sounds fierce. I'm a little thrown by the lack of lead work on here, because they are going for more of that Floridian death metal sound, and they got 2 guitarists in the band, but they really don't have them step out front yet. And I wonder if some of that is, again, coming from more of that, crust and grind background where guitar solos, you ain't got time for no fucking guitar solos. But, here the songs are getting a little longer. Again, they're fitting a death metal template more nicely. But I wonder if it just hadn't occurred to them yet that they needed to flesh out that part of the songs. The leads, just really aren't, there so much. So where there's parts of the songs that are going by is like, this is a cool heavy riff, but it's been going for a little bit. It feels like they should have slipped a solo in here, and they just don't. They kind of just, stick to the rhythm. Other things about this. So yeah, this one has changed the most, as I said. Finally, finding I get where the right stereo, the right pair of speakers where it sounds better. I think it sounds like a really good old school death metal album. My one hang up with this one moving forward is going to be I don't know how much I'm going to want to play this over other albums of that genre. It's like, if I want to hear Napalm Death play death metal, sure, this album's the one to go to. But if I want to hear this style of death metal, Harmony Corruption, it doesn't have to compete with From Enslavement or later albums. It has to compete with the Obituaries and the Entombs and the Deicides, and it has to compete with those kind of albums. And I'm not sure where I rank this one compared to a lot of those other classic death metal albums that came out around the same time. So it's been cool revisiting it. I definitely like it and rank it a lot higher than I thought I was going to. But I do wonder moving forward if it's just going to be that album that it just doesn't quite fit either camp just right. It's not napalmy enough for when I want to hear napalm, and it's going to be overshadowed by other death metal albums when I want to hear death metal. So that's going to be interesting to see moving forward. This album has been up and down in my rankings. I think it started out as something like 11th or 14th, but here at the end of the week after, again, I'm giving this one I probably played this one more this past week than any of the others. I've got it ranked at number 5. It came up a lot because I think it does sound good. Finally, there's a lot of performances I like. Like I said, I just don't know where it kind of measures up compared to other albums and other genres, but I will rank it 5th tonight. So that's my take on it. Marty, what is yours?
Reading Scott's book and that whole segment on Harmony Corruption and Mick's attitude through the whole thing, I actually kind of felt kind of bad for him, because I think I understand what he was going through. He was the glue that was holding Napalm together, rebuilt it with his ideas to take it in more of a death metal direction, not really realizing what that meant. Mm-hmm. Meaning, here's a guy, he's, the king of speed. He can blast it out. He's got a unique blasting style, and when he's on, he's on fire. But if you listen to some of his other stuff, and coming from a punk sensibility, timing is not necessarily a concern. And you go into a studio and ask to play to a click track. Any problems you have as a player, any weakness as a player, it is amplified in this environment. You're struggling playing to a click, something you've never done before. You have to all of a sudden do that. You haven't been doing that in the rehearsal room. It's just grab your ass and go. The Venom mentality, Abaddon, one of the worst drummers ever. But somehow Venom was used to playing with that, and they were Venom, and Napalm was Napalm. Whatever speed it came out is what they did, and they just followed Mick. But here you are in this recording process, and you're under scrutiny. It's not good enough. You're off. You're here. You're there, and frustrations boil. And let's be honest, I haven't spun this. When this album came out, I listened to it a lot, and this is another one of those. My opinion has changed a lot over the years, and listening to it again, it was cool because I'm like remembering all the songs. I'm singing along with them. I got it. It's been ages, and I'm still locked in with this record. But it sounds like there's like molasses dumped over it. There's a muddiness to this record. It doesn't. It sounds like it was recorded at a Morris Sound adjacent studio, like one in the back alley of Morris Sound. But in the mix, I think Barney's a bit loud in the mix. I mean, little nitpicky shit like that. I go on forever, but it's the weirdness I have with this record is you come out of 2 punk inspired records. There is no transitional record here. This is a whole, if it didn't have the Napalm Death logo on it, there would be no remnants of that spirit at all. I don't think. You got a different singer, you got 2 American guitar players. They're great riff writers, great songwriters. Don't get me wrong. Their respective bands are great. And, the stuff they did with Napalm moving forward is fantastic, but it's just a weird, it's a weird situation to be in. Okay, we're going to do this now, and will sound nothing like what people know of Napalm Death. So, maybe the Mentally Murdered EP again, we're bringing this out again. Maybe that would have been a transitional.
We're talking about that. What are we talking?
Yeah, it's still not necessarily. It's just I think a better produced, better realized version of the from Enslavement era. But anyway, going back, looking at this record for me, it feels dated. It feels the production really hurts it, which we're going to find on the album after it. A better production really makes a big difference. But anyway, for me, Harmony Corruption, I still have a lot of nostalgia for this record, and you put it on a party, I'm going to sing along with it and all that stuff. But for this ranking at this point in my life, it's number 15. That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to apologize for my co-host.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it.
But all joking aside, I like I said, I had it ranked as as low as 14 with one of the first drafts I threw together for this. So
no, that's where
I get it. The album
still.
has the album has its issues.
Yeah, man. I can't wait. I just want to get to Marty's number 16. Really, that's
Let me see.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's deserved.
All right. Let's get on to number 4 though, so we can get a quarter of the way through this endeavor.
1992's Utopia Banished.
There we go. Utopia Banished. Which in the back you will see the set list from Napalm Death's special Metal and Beer Fest performance in Philly in 2021, where they played Utopia Banished and Harmony Corruption. They didn't play all of them, but it was those 2 records that they played from. I did let them cheat a little and throw in stuff from the Mass Appeal Madness EP because that's in between, and I wanted to hear the title track. So there you go. But yeah. Utopia Banished. This is one of my favorites. I love this record. This is in terms of the lineup. This would be the first Napalm Death recording in a very long time that did not feature Mick Harris on drums. Mick left after the recording of the Mass Appeal Madness EP in 91. He was replaced by Danny Herrera, who I believe was Jesse knew from the Los Angeles scene. Danny was really green. He didn't really have much band experience, but they knew he could blast, and blast he did on Utopia Banished. I don't think most people in the greater extreme metal underground understood what a big difference it was to not have Mick Harris in the band anymore, because he'd obviously written a lot of the riffs, even on Harmony Corruption, like the Suffer the Children riff. That's Mick, So it's like some of the most important, iconic riffs in the Napalm catalog were his. So removing him from the equation and the songwriting really falling to Shane, Mitch, and Jesse, I think it made it way tighter. And the production moving back to Colin Richardson after the Scott Burns adventure really just kind of re-solidified Napalm as just a legitimate band, really. It was such a massive step up in terms of sound and presentation for what compared to Harmony. I believe Future Ruins mentioned it in the chat here. The Headbangers Ball played the World Keeps Turning video repeatedly in 92. And I think that song in particular is one of those kind of early Napalm songs, that kind of like the Napalm Death single, which we'll be exploring in greater detail as we get into some of these mid and later period albums, like as kind of touched upon via Diatribes. I can't remember if we were recording when we talked about that, but that's like, a band that could write a single. And The World Keeps Turning for me is like kind of one of those mid-pace bangers that really serves as a template for a good 30 years for that style of Napalm sound, or that style of Napalm song. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's definitely, it's got a lot more character. It's got a lot more variation than Harmony. And I just love it. It's super aggressive. It's super feral sounding at times, but super catchy. And, the nostalgia that I thought I would have for Harmony, I think I have it. I think it's transferred more over to Utopia. And for me, this is my number 2. This is number 2 with a bullet for me.
Okay.
And yeah, love it to death. Great cover art. Had a shirt. Wish I still had it. That everybody knows that story. Anyway, Alan, all you.
Oh, great points. Yeah, they go back, work with Colin Richardson. The production much, much better. Big step up from what they did on Harmony. And it's funny, Marty, you said that there really wasn't a transition album, in between Enslavement and Harmony. To me, this should have been the transition album because, there's plenty of grind here, but there's also a death metal element worked into it. This album would make, if I could go back in time and rearrange the album so they would make a little more sense, I think Utopia should have come before Harmony Corruption, because it would feel like, yeah, we're still doing some of the grind stuff, but we're leaning to death metal. Then Harmony would come out and be like, yeah, this is just a death metal album. Having this one come after Harmony feels a little out of place. And I think it's one reason some people don't connect with this album as much, because they felt like, Napalm, had kept, changing, switching things up. And then you got to this album, and in their view, this one feels like a step backwards. That they're like, the death metal experiment didn't work out. Better start blasting more again. But I understand their point and why they see it that way. But I think the pluses way outweigh the negatives on this. Again, production much better. Performances are great. It's a great set of songs. And Albert mentioned, Danny Herrera coming in, and Herrera's a fantastic drummer. Yeah, I am not a musician. I don't.
Good timing, great timing. He's like a machine, but he can blast his ass off, and he's got a lot of tasteful fills. He's great.
Yes, that's the thing. He can blast his ass off, but he doesn't just blast his ass off. Yep. He can put in all these fills, and he fills in a lot. It's not just like a quick fill. It's like he crams some extra beats into those fills. He, on later albums, he can also, get more groovy, but still blast at the same time. He can, he can play a lot of different styles. He is not just there to blast as fast as he can and do nothing else. So yeah, he was a great addition to the band. I understand that, yes, they lost a chunk of their fan base when Mick goes away. There are people who still haven't gotten over that. And that's their choice. If that's the era they like, that's cool. But Herrera, again, even to a total non-musician as myself, all the way through the rest of their catalog, even when we get to some albums I'm not as keen on, or some songs that, they just don't click with me, Danny always keeps them moving. There's always something happening. If nothing else, he's always providing some energy and some life, even to the tracks that kind of start to go in one ear and out the other for me. So yeah, love his addition to the band. It's a nerdy little thing, but I always like the fact that this album, the title is kind of, a play off of Paradise Lost. that always just kind of made, the inner nerd smile a little bit. So like Utopia Banished Paradise. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. So yeah. This one for me is my number 1. I think it kind of has like all the perfect Napalm elements. You've got the grind, you've got a good dose of death metal, a great set of songs and a great set of performances. So it all just kind of comes together on this album for me, and I would rank it as my favorite.
Awesome.
Marty, is this your 16th?
No, this one, I spent a lot of time with this album when it came out. I couldn't put it down, to be honest. It's got a brighter production, better songs. Barney is less out in front and in the mix more, which really was kind of needed. I really like the riffs and songs on here. And you even have some 2-minute long blasting tracks on here, which is kind of a callback to, the early days on here, which it ties the new school to the old punk vibe. But it's this album is this newish lineup figuring out how to do Napalm Death things and building off the Harmony Corruption template. And I think they nailed it here. I think this it's just a better album. It feels more urgent. It's really great to hear, Danny's drum performance on here. He really ties up the loose ends nicely. Whereas, Mick, he's a good drummer. I'm not saying that, but he put himself in a position moving forward, thinking it would be easy. He could go off his charisma but I again, there's a technicality in it. I mean, there's a level of exactness you have to follow with a certain type of death metal. I mean, you have to become a machine. You have to become the machine to hold everything together sometimes. And Danny was the guy for the job in this iteration and going forward of Napalm Death. Yeah, but for me, this is a fantastic record. Number six on my list.
Good.
Okay.
Glad there isn't a 1 in front of that.
No, and I realize I'm being a dick on, but I don't hate. Again, I don't think there's any bad Napalm Death record. It's in my head going into this. I did. I'm like, oh, I remember hating this and putting it on this week and going, oh shit, this is better than I remember it. And they really haven't screwed up, more or less. There's some things here and there with each record, but sometimes 15 happens. That's all I'm going to say. 15 or 14, it happens.
Gotta go somewhere.
You got to rank something. Yeah, when you're ranking them, something's got to be at the bottom.
All right, that brings us to 1994. Albert, where are we at? You have a record for this one to show?
I do.
Right,
I have a record for this one. Fear, Emptiness, Despair. Let's call it the major label debut from Napalm Death.
There's a problem. There's not the real logo on there.
Yeah.
Look at that bullshit logo.
I don't know what's happening there.
Cough, cough. Major label sellout.
Yeah.
Cough, cough.
Yeah. Look at that. This is autographed in pen. I think I won this on eBay like 20 years ago. But yeah, this is pre-Sharpie era apparently, because it's just pen grounded into the. Anyway, okay. A couple things of note with Fear, Emptiness, Despair. First, as I mentioned, that is a record that came out via the ill-fated Eric Columbia deal of the mid-90s when Columbia in the U.S. licensed, 5 or 6 bands. It was Napalm, Carcass, Godflesh, Entombed, and Fudge Tunnel. That sounds about right, right?
Yep. Fudge Tunnel is such a weird addition to that lineup.
Great. That was one.
I love them. I thought they were great, but it's just weird. They don't come off as major label stock to me. Anyway,
yeah, but I mean, amazingly, they probably had the best inroads to any kind of commercial.
True. Good point.
Path. But anyway, so there's that. This is the now on the heels of Utopia Banished. First time Napalm Death has recorded albums with the same lineup back to back. First time.
Yeah.
Get to album number 5 before that happens. And musically, it's the first. Commercial really isn't the right word because it is an extraordinarily extreme sounding album, but it's the first time they kind of release a album that maybe isn't quite as grinding as what they had done in the past.
Yeah,
there's definitely some more stop start staccato kind of riffing. There is a lot of Helmet, Meantime era Helmet, and Strap It On era Helmet that permeates. songs like Hung in particular. That's just a big old helmet riff that guides that song. Even to some extent, what I guess what the single was, Plague Rages, has elements of that too. It's a weirder, denser sounding production, I think, despite the space that the riffs have. If anything, it should feel brighter, and it doesn't. It feels a little more suffocating to me when I listen to it. I think part of that may have to do with Barney's vocals. And I guess this was something that he told me over the years, and I don't remember if I've written about this or not, but he did mention that the studio that they recorded in was really just dry, and he kept losing his voice when he was singing. So it's got like his voice has a really just like kind of dried out sound to it, where he's really kind of struggling at times. And I don't know if I hear it as much as struggle, but just as like a weirder intonation of his trademark bark. But again, this album kind of serves as a template to the Wilderness years, which we will get into. This, we could lump this in with the logo, the false Napalm logo years, because it's one of 4 records that does it. But This is the album I think that retains the most from the pre-experimental years going forward compared to the next few. But I think that when people typically think of those more experimental, less grinding Napalm records, this is kind of where they start. But I'm a fan. I mean, I have it number 11, but
hey, me too.
But it's still like that doesn't mean I dislike the record by any means. I enjoy it quite a bit, and cover art is not good. But I like the title. Feeling it more than ever. Still a good one. Still gets on every once in a while. The second half, side 2, doesn't hit me as hard as side 1, but number 11 for me. So I'll pass it over to you, Alan.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, all good points. This definitely does feel like you're moving into like kind of a second era of Napalm, not just because of the logo change. But yeah, this one, it does feel like maybe they're definitely grinding less, getting more, the death metal sound is, the main primary factor. But it also feels like now the band is starting to bring in, other influences, other things that they're into. The members have always famously listened to a lot of different styles of music. They're not only into punk or only into hardcore. They've always listened to a lot of stuff. And this is the album where it feels like, they're willing to start dabbling in some of that. And they do it pretty well. It's not like they go full on, Machine Head or a full on Fear Factory or anything, but you hear that, okay, they probably have heard some of this other stuff and want to, incorporate it into their sound. Not change their sound into something else, but just, start, bringing in other sounds and other influences. Works pretty well. My girlfriend got this album when it came out, and we both enjoyed it, but I hadn't revisited it in forever, so I didn't really know what to expect. It's held up really well, I've got to say. The things you pointed out, cover art, definitely not a thing. Production, it does have a little bit more of a weirder, cold isn't really the right word, but maybe denser is a good word for it. And the album definitely has a darker tone overall. It feels like they're getting away from all of the, political, socio-political kind of lyrics that they've been known for. And this album it has that 90s kind of, inner turmoil, working through my demons and, inner issues kind of stuff is becoming more part of the lyrics for a lot of songs. So in a way, it feels like a product of its time, with the cover art and kind of that darker direction. But it doesn't feel like it's trying to just blatantly be some commercial sellout either. which, yeah, people were accusing it of that with the label affiliation. I think it's in your book, Albert, that Barney points out. He, at least in particular, was really kind of anxious about the band having that Columbia logo on it. He's just like, really? Is this a thing that's right for us? Geez, I don't know about that. So it wasn't just fans that were scratching their heads. Even he wasn't completely sure about it. And, he wasn't, completely sold on the direction the band was going in either. Which is funny because he sounds great doing the material. He very much sounds like he's into it and does a great performance. But even he wasn't quite sure about all the changes that were happening around this time. For me, I've ranked this one at number 7. These kind of wilderness period albums are going to cluster together really close for me. I have this ranked. Small spoiler, I have this ranked as the highest out of these 4 albums from this period, but they all are kind of close together. It's held up well.
All right. For me, I always liked this record. When it came out, I thought the production was okay. I liked the fact that there were more elements of groove and elements of melody here than maybe ever before. The Killing Joke ideas in here, some swans, other avant-garde musical characteristics are starting to coincide with the death metal leaning Napalm Death, which is, kind of bold to cross that bridge. And really the creative seeds that are planted on this album they're still very much a vital part of what the band is in 2025, which is kind of incredible. The ideas here stuck, and it's going back and listening to it this week. The album's inspired and interesting. No real complaints. It's kind of funny. The CD pressing has more red in it than your vinyl pressing does.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
I mean, the color scheme on here, you open it up, the orange and the blue. It's like, what the hell? The art department needs to be skinned. But anyway, I mean, having said all that, I put it at number 11, but it's held up okay. It really is. I don't know. I applaud the band for trying new things, and as we're going to get into the next album here, they kind of shocked me a bit how far they went with it, but it still kind of works anyway. Number 11 for me, and that brings us to 1996. Albert.
1996. Diatribes. Again, lineup is preserved. Look at that. Yeah, I used to have this on vinyl. I thought I did. I couldn't find it earlier. It might be here somewhere, but I don't know where.
Did the Hung EP come out before this? And I know it was a slip sleeve. I have that, and I didn't care for it much.
The Hung EP was before that, but there was the Greed Killing EP.
I have that too.
I think the Greed Killing EP preceded Diatribes, and there was, because I think I still have some kind of CD version that like you could like fit your
Hung thing in the
Greed Killing fit in with Diatribe. Yeah, it was some. Yep. I mean, they were. I'm pretty sure the material was all recorded at the same time.
Yeah.
But for as as dark a production as Fear, Emptiness, Despair was, Diatribes is, I think, the brightest that Napalm had sounded to this point. And it was a lot of that kind of mid-paced approach that worked on Fear, Emptiness, Despair, but really kind of pushed even further out on this album, especially with the aforementioned Greed Killing, which really, like, that is maybe like the catchiest Napalm Death song ever. Like, is there a catchy Napalm Death song?
No, there isn't.
No. Like, it's such a little banger, and it's just like it's not super extreme, but like apart from Barney's vocals, like the guitar sound is really kind of, I don't want to say industrial, because I think that's like gives kind of weird connotations, especially for 1996, but like it's just got a kind of a wild approach to it, which I think aged better than I expected it to at the time. I know a lot of people were super like if people were like, hey, what the fuck with Fear, Emptiness, Despair, Diatribes is like, this isn't Napalm Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big leap. It's a first record with Shane singing on a little bit. I'm pretty sure he does the verse parts in Curse to Crawl. He'd sing a lot more later on in the band. But that was like, you know, that was a lot different. But again, it's that kind of mid-pace, less blasting, but still, you know, still extreme, still experimental. It's right there clustered with Fear, Emptiness, Despair for me in terms of ranking. I have it at number 12, just right behind Fear, Emptiness, Despair. They're similar approaches, I think, but the end results in a lot of ways are kind of dramatically different. I think I sooner reach for Diatribes than I do Fear, Emptiness, Despair. But I have Fear, Emptiness, Despair ranked ahead of it. So there you go. Anyway, that's all I got on that one. So on to you, Alan.
All right.
Yeah, good analysis on this one. Yeah, definitely kind of their brightest sounding album, which right away makes it feel different from Fear, Emptiness, Despair, which has that darker tone we talked about. This one too kind of feels the most 90s to me. They're, you know, playing up the groove element a bit more. It doesn't take over the album, but it's definitely, you know, present. It's a lot more noticeable. And that can be a dirty word to a lot of metal fans who endured a lot of stuff in the mid 90s. But again, I think this is one of the points where, you know, Danny Herrera really does start to show what he's completely capable of, because this album needs a different approach than just, you know, the old school blasting. And Herrera still makes it sound very fierce, but, you know, he can handle the groovy parts. He can handle the borderline funky-ish stuff that pops up here and there and makes it sound good. So yeah, he, you know, really helps, you know, champion this kind of sound. Yeah, this one for me, I picked it up a while back after hearing the Radical Research show on this era. I actually kind of was joking with Hunter about it because I found a really cheap copy on Discogs one night. It was like $4. I ordered it, so I immediately like sent Hunter a message and like, I'm betting $4 on your opinion of this record, sir. We're going to see how this plays out because it doesn't have the best reputation among some fans. He wrote back, he's just like, your money's good. You're going to be fine. It's been kind of a slow grower for me. It's not something I put in and immediately loved, but, you know, I've stuck with it. You know, if Hunter's got a really good opinion of something, it's worth giving some time. I've learned that listening to Radical Research over the years. And yeah, this one has kind of, you know, slowly grown on me. It's not my favorite, but it's not a bad one either. I've got it ranked a little bit lower than Fear, Emptiness. I put this one at 10 currently. And again, while I still a little lower overall, it's more like in the middle of the pack out of the 16 albums, and doesn't mean that's a bad album. It's just, yeah, as Albert said earlier, there's a lot of, you know, bangers here, and there's just other albums I enjoy a bit more. This does kind of feel like Napalm at their most experimental in a way. They're really, you know, looking to expand the sound some. And something that's funny that's mentioned in your book, Albert, Barney was out of the band for a little bit around this time.
After this one, after this record, is he bolts.
Yeah, you know, he wasn't, you know, it's funny because, you know, fans of this album will point out that, yeah, he sounds great doing this. But after this album, yeah, he's not on the same page as the rest of the band, you know, has to, you know, step aside for a while. He's back by the time they're recording the next album, but it wasn't a completely unified Napalm camp moving forward with this direction on Diatribes.
I know he didn't live with those guys. There was like a band house where the guys lived, and I think Barney lived off campus somewhere.
Okay.
Campus. Yeah. We'll say off campus. Yeah, but
yeah. He wasn't just physically separated from them, though, in terms of like, you know, direction. You know, he didn't seem to really, you know, buy into this sound for Napalm as much as, but, you know, you're in a band and it's 4 versus 1 in terms of if everyone else is on that page and you're on this page, yeah, that's a lonely place to be. So it's just interesting to me that while they're definitely trying a lot of things, it doesn't mean everything was all sunshine and roses behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's my take on Diatribes. Marty, I'm going to toss it over to you and I will be back in just a minute.
Did you rank it?
I did. I ranked it number 10.
Okay, right on. I didn't hear that part. I was reading the chat. I can't do 2 things at once, apparently. Okay.
It's all good. There's a lot of good stuff being mentioned in the chat. So, got to keep up with that too.
Yeah, for me, this album, I got the week it came out. I remember hitting play and that bouncy and, dare I say, pop-like groove of Greed Killing. Like, what? Oh, no. This is a bridge too far. They've gone too far with this, and it really didn't sit well. The younger me had to be all rough and tumble when it came to this music, but I stuck with it. And the songs, the catchiness of Greed Killing, you can't deny it. It's just a catchy freaking song. I ended up liking the album, but it felt like too much of a step into this more commercial ambition world that they were. I don't know if they were meaning to go there. Maybe they were, or they were just trying to see how far they could take this melody thing. I don't know, but it's funny. As an old guy, I like it better now than I did, which is, it kind of demonstrates how ahead of their time the band was, I think. Especially in the grinding. My dive into grindcore isn't great. I mean, I hit all the bases, but for me, a band like Brutal Truth were always kind of ahead of the curve. They injected more of the avant-garde Japanese hardcore in with their sound as they went. They got more organic and strange, and kind of going along with that evolution, it was cool. And Napalm kind of went into a more commercial direction with it, but then they've come back around, I think, and kind of exceeded where Brutal Truth were going in, modern day Napalm Death. But anyway, for me, Diatribes, they go a little crazy with the experimentation and the groove and the melody, but it still works. There's still some good composed songs on here. It's a 13 for me. I mean, it's lower on the list, but some records have to go at the end, but it held up good. I like it better now than I did when it came out, which says a lot, I guess. And that brings us to 1997 and Inside the Torn Apart.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Look at that hot garbage artwork. Come on,
man. This period of album art for Napalm for some issues.
I do wonder, folks won't complain about the logo being wrong. I wonder if these albums had really killer cover art, if people would have minded the logo disappearing as much.
Probably. Probably not as much. I mean, so many bands had removed their original squiggly logos by this period.
Yeah.
I think it would be different, but they're just it's
just a 1-2 punch of there's nothing good to look at on the covers here.
Right. Yeah, like what I would say about Inside the Torn Apart is if you think this is bad, just wait. But as far as the content of the record goes, as Alan mentioned, Barney was actually booted from the band shortly after the Diatribes touring cycle, and was replaced with Phil Vane from Extreme Noise Terror. And Barney went and kind of joined Extreme Noise Terror. Like he
was on a video, wasn't he? I mean, he recorded some stuff with them. Yeah,
he's on the album. I can't remember the name of the album. It's got some numbers in it. It's an okay album.
Oh yeah.
Came out on Earache.
Yep.
And to me, he's a little wishy-washy whether he was a full-time member or not. But regardless, Napalm recruited Phil Vane to replace him. They had written all the material for Inside the Torn Apart without Barney. When they went in to record it, it was not working in the studio with Phil. So they basically went with their tail between their legs, asking Barney to come back, and he agreed and rejoined and laid down the vocals, like I said, after everything was written. And where that gets us to is an album which is, in the vein of Diatribes, but I would say not nearly as compelling. just there's a couple moments that stick out, like Breed to Breathe is kind of the opening track, and the lead single is kind of like a Greed Killing Part 2, but not quite as good. And the title track is one that I remember quite a bit of because it's another one that Shane sings on, and I think that kind of jumped out at me as interesting sounding at the time. But it's just kind of more of that mid-pace stop-start stuff. And I don't think it's even a commercial reaching as much as them, being big fans of all kinds of different types of music and branching out. And at that point being, what are we on? Album 5?
Number 7.
6, 7? Yeah. Like there's a lot of death metal and grindcore has come and gone by the time they get to this point. So I think for a lot of people, for them, I feel like they thought it was unrealistic that they should be, doing the shit that they were doing in like 88 or 89 or whatever. So it definitely has a band that is on a path, but maybe they're just kind of on the path that they had just come from and not really knowing where that's leading to. And that's kind of vague, but that's kind of the record in a nutshell. It's kind of a vague approximation of like what Napalm Death, I guess, expected to be in 1997. And again, it's not the greatest time for extreme metal. It's just a weird period overall. So I guess it will be no surprise that this is 16 out of 16 on my list for Napalm Death rankings. I still like it because it's a Napalm Death album, and it honestly, it has a song that has managed to endure that a lot of the other kind of wilderness era albums don't have, and that is Low Point, which is a blaster near the end of the record, which just really just like it just takes your face off, and it reminds you how brutal they could be and what they were still capable of. It's almost kind of wistful when you hear that record when you hear that song in terms of the record. But yeah, it's but overall it's just, I think, the weakest of their canon. So I have it at the bottom, but if they play Breed to Breathe or Low Point on Sunday, I'll be stoked. So there's that.
Yeah.
Alan, all of you, man.
Yeah, good good point to this. It feels in a lot of ways like Diatribes, but a less eclectic Diatribes. Maybe they're starting to reel it in just a little bit. And it could be due to some of those like changes in just the musical environment that you just mentioned. I hadn't thought of that, but by this point, album sales are dipping. I would assume that, attendance numbers were probably dipping. Shows were getting smaller, or they're probably getting booked maybe in smaller venues. There are probably some signs that things weren't going great with the band by this point. So maybe they did, we're starting to feel like, yeah, maybe Diatribes was a step too far for some folks and we need to tone it down just a little bit. But it doesn't feel like it's a massive rework. It's not, Scum Part 2 or something either. They're still in a similar sonic space. Low Point's a good track. There was one other I liked on here that you didn't mention. Oh, Birth and Regress. I thought that was kind of a cool song too. But don't have much experience with this one. I ranked it, let's see, where did I put it? I put it at 9th. And again, I kind of have these wilderness era albums all clustered together because they are all interesting. They show the band trying some different things, and all of the albums are good. None of the albums ever necessarily feel like, oh, this one's just, they're phoning it in, or, oh, this one's the obvious, just, again, let's go back and do From Enslavement Part 2 to cash in or something. So they're still out there trying some different stuff, and, it works on some songs. With more spins, this one could move up or could move down. Don't know, but yeah, I've kind of got it towards the middle right now at number 9.
Man, thinking of a band. This lineup going back and doing like a tribute era, like, oh, let's make Enslavement Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. And I don't think they have it in them. They come from a different world. I mean, even though, after Jesse passed and Mitch was kind of taking over, Mitch and Shane were taking over the songwriting, the riffs are still very much death metal minded, but this crazier to me. I don't know. I don't know if they had that punk. They could have done that. I don't know if it would have turned out the way that, I don't know. That was just a what if, but yeah, Inside the Torn Apart for me. This is number 12 on the list. Putting it on and listening to it this week, I was surprised. It's super slick production. The production is like top of the line, big label production sound. And, you got Breed to Breathe starts it off, and they're kind of continuing on with that more melodic and groovy experimental ideas. I did also like the one after it. What is it called? You just said it, Alan.
Birth and Regress.
Yeah, Birth and Regress. They're good, but they're more on the commercial leaning side. And, there's that element of commercialism on this era. It's hard to ignore, especially with such a slick production and, there's no bumps or bruises on any of this material. It's very processed, and it just always felt a bit disingenuous considering what the band is and what they are and what they were. There's still good stuff on here on occasion. But yeah, I don't really, in the pantheon of Napalm Death records, there's never an itch where I'm like, I'm going to grab Inside the Torn Apart. That hit the spot right now. And just, yeah, it's number 12 for me, which brings us to, oh man.
Oh, give it the full screen treatment, please.
This is what the hell is happening? What is happening here? 3 bonus tracks exclusive to the US release. Okay, great.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there.
I don't know what's happening here, but it's someone got a new filter on their computer, and this is what they came up with. But all right, Albert, what do you think of Words from the Exit Wound from 1997? No, 98. I'm sorry.
98. This is the final release on Earache Records for Napalm, fulfilling their contract that they were backed into a corner to sign many years earlier. And this is also kind of the nadir of the Colin Richardson production era of the band, where you talk about Inside the Torn Apart being slick. There is a sheen to Words from the Exit Wound. Like there's like everything sounds, it sounds great, it sounds precise, and just very I don't know, it's so slick you could just slide right off it, man. But what I will say is I do think there's some great songs on it, and one of them being the Infiltrator in particular, the opening cut from it, which I think I mentioned. I can't remember if I mentioned this to the Radical Research Boys when they did their show on this, but it's something that I had noticed because I knew they were doing it. And what I pointed out was the way that the Infiltrator is structured musically. It is like it's almost a carbon copy of the way Suffer the Children is constructed. If you listen to those songs back to back, they are like oddly sister songs in terms of the way they're written, which is wild because you just wouldn't think that they would have anything to do with each other since they were written by two different people. Productions are totally different, eras are drastically different, but it in a way it's really cool because it just kind of keeps, even though Napalm Death continues to evolve, although arguably they are treading a little bit of water with this record and on the heels of the couple that it follows, it's still cool that there is that red line between, what is essentially their death metal era and what they were doing with this kind of more groove and experimental influence period. I don't hate it. I don't listen to it much. I have it at number 13, which again is just like Alan's. It's kind of clustered with the others. It's just those records are clustered lower towards the bottom. And again, I want to, I'm not trying to sound like an apologist for ranking them there. I genuinely like the experimental era records, but they just kind of end up in that spot for me, and that's where I have that one. And that record is kind of the end of an era for the band, which I'm sure we'll get into just in a couple minutes. But until then, all you, Alan.
Yeah, and this not too hard to sum up. One of the worst covers pieces of art ever. The Infiltrator absolutely slaps. I think even folks who aren't keen on this era of the band will still say, but yeah, that track really does slay. Really cool, interesting observation about the structure on the other track, and on the Radical Research, they did mention that they credited you, like, yeah, Albert told us that these two tracks are structured the same. They didn't get a chance to like break the songs down and compare them side by side, but they did shout out that you had mentioned that.
No, because they mercifully have 1 hour long podcasts. they wouldn't have. Sorry.
Yeah, but no, they thought it was a neat idea. They were kind of like, man, we should have broken that down and tried it out. But yeah, they just I got the sense they didn't get around to it before they recorded, but they thought it was interesting. But yeah, this is another one I don't have much history with. It fits into this same era pretty nicely. To me, it feels like, though, again, they're probably dialing back on some of the experimentation and stuff from Diatribes. It's like, yeah, we're slowly drifting away from that. Still trying different things, still incorporating it, and it still works fairly well. But it does, in a way, it feels like that era was winding down. And like you said, things are about to change. For me, I put this one at number 8. And I mainly put it...
That is generous as shit, by the way.
it might be a little bit, but I feel like it... I don't think... I have these clustered. I felt like Fear, Emptiness, Despair is better than this one. I think this one's a little easier to get into than the previous two, which I had at 10 and 9. So I'm like, okay, I guess this one kind of squeezes in between then, which is where I ended up with this one. Get past the cover art. There are at least, there are some bangers here, and it's at least a pretty straightforward album. There's no, like that element you pointed out, Marty, with having to kind of get over the grooviness on Greed Killing Something. There's no barrier to entry like that on this album. At least There wasn't for me.
Yeah, they dialed that back for sure.
Yeah, which is why I've got this one ranked just a little higher than the previous two. But sounds like you've got it ranked a bit lower than me, Marty. Where's it at?
This is my number 16, right out the gate. This thing is, okay. Again, they've dialed back the experimentation, which, okay, fine, but they really locked in on a mid-pace flow throughout this record. I mean, I really, my ears perked up. Was it Ulterior Exterior? There's some blasting on that, but that's like 7 songs in, and we're just getting the flavor, the napalm aggression. And then they go back to the groove stuff, the mid-pace groove stuff, and man, it sounds like, okay, maybe we need to dial back on this, happier, groovy stuff. And they did it, and the life is gone. I'm not saying that it needed that experimentation, but they didn't reintroduce the grind to it. They just kind of left it kind of like a flatline heartbeat throughout this whole record. Again, there's some really well constructed, solid songs here. There's nothing that's like crap. It's just it just feels very tired and lifeless and kind of like listing, like they don't know where they're going to go with this. So, and I saw them during this tour too. I think it might have been the first New England Metal and Hardcore Fest. My brain is really fuzzy from back then. I was out east for something, and they were just uninspired live. It was just going through the motions. There was no energy from the stage. It was for this record. I'm like, wow. I was really kind of surprised. They didn't really bring it that night. And it was, this is kind of a indication of, maybe coming off of the whole sessions for this record. I don't know, but yeah, this is a low point in their career for me. I mean, does the album suck? Like Albert said, it doesn't suck. It's not a terrible album. It's just not a good Napalm Death record. But that brings us to Hey, guess who's back
Back
in the
again.
2000s Enemy of the Music Business? We got the old logo back.
Yeah.
That's a good indicator.
Yeah.
There it is. Yep.
There it is. That's that looks like a Napalm Death record, doesn't it?
That looks like a Napalm Death record.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It sure sounds like a Napalm Death record.
It sure does.
This one, just to give a little backstory on it, this is the record where after Words from the Exit Wound, I think the band honestly felt not dissimilar to the way all three of us felt after hearing that record. And I don't remember if it was Barney who had heard it or if Shane has heard it. I'm guessing it was Shane who heard it and played it for Barney, but one of them heard Nauseum, Inhale, Exhale.
Great record.
Yeah. And they heard just like a ferocious grind band, but in
a death metal style.
In a death metal style that sounded huge, sounded awesome, brought riffs, brought an intensity, and it basically kicked them in the ass to say, you know what? This is what we need to do. We need to get back to what, we need to get back to the fast stuff. And to their credit, it wasn't like they sat down and were like, all right, we're going to do Fido 2.0. They took all of that like experimental stuff that they were doing for, at that point, like nearly half a decade, and used what they'd learned from like the songwriting elements, and incorporated that with a really just like aggressive, fast, grinding approach. And they created this record that just hit in 2000 at a time when I think people were like, this band is toast. I mean, I hate to even admit this, but I just kind of felt like at that point, like Napalm Death were, I don't want to say over, but just like, it was just kind of like, it was like, yeah, it was just kind of going through the motions. Like you said, Marty. And I had, this record came out in Europe in 2000 and didn't come out in America until I think 2001. I think Spitfire put it out here. And I can't remember. I think it was,
that's my pressing Spitfire.
Yeah. I think it was like something, I think it was a one-off label called Dreamcatcher put it out.
Yep. That's right, Albert.
And yeah, it was just like, so it didn't get like, it didn't have like great distribution, but it's the first record not on earache for them. So like, they were making moves that like, they might not have been super well informed or like had that kind of great experience outside of earache, but they made it through. But the point being that I think it took people a minute to know that this record existed and that Napalm had revitalized their sound. And this is a Simon Ephemy production coming out of the first, non-Colin Richardson album in a long time. Simon Ephemy, for me, in addition to producing the Wonder Stuff, who I kind of like, I got to admit, produced 3 of my favorite Paradise Lost records in the 90s, did Shades of God, Icon, and Draconian Times. So he can give you a big sound that has clarity to it, but doesn't abandon heaviness, and doesn't feel sterile like Napalm kind of got with Colin Richardson. But anyway, it took a minute for this to kind of get over to the States for people to understand that this thing existed and that Napalm was really revitalized. But, in terms of like just the songs themselves, there are, my God, there are just so many like records or songs to me that are just classics that don't necessarily make their way that often into Napalm's live set list these days. But like
Vermin's a crusher, man. That song. Oh.
That song's awesome. Taste of Poison next on the list. Necessary Evil might be one of the catchiest Napalm Death songs ever. That song, side 2, that is a total banger. Check that out. They actually are playing it on this tour. That much I know. Public Gets What the Public Doesn't Want. I I adore this album. This album came out right before I started working on Choosing Death, and was one of the records that, for me, kind of influenced me to get cracking on the record. When I saw like the revitalization of this band, I was like excited to have this stuff back into my life, because honestly, I wasn't listening to a ton of Napalm Death in 2000 when this came out. So this record is a turning point for me as a fan of the band. I think it kind of gets overlooked at times. Like, you know, I know people like it. I know people know it's good, but I feel like there isn't enough cheerleading for this album, and I hope to correct that right now by making it my number one of Napalm Death releases. I absolutely love it. It's a go-to Napalm record for me. I can hear it at any time, all the way through. Absolutely love it. It fucking rules. And Enemy of the Music Business, great album title also. So there you have it. All you, Alan.
All right.
Very cool. Yeah, I knew you liked this one, had it ranked pretty high. Yeah, it's Napalm, you know, saying we're back and doing it pretty well. It's not just that the logo's back and that, you know, the cover art is better, more kind of in their style, but yeah, the music's back too. Interesting about the Nazem thing. I did not know that was a big influence on them at the time. The other big influence on them at the time, of course, was the split with Earache, which was not amicable, to say the least. Yeah, you know, to this day, you know, they'll argue back and forth about the exact wording of, you didn't drop us. Well, technically you dropped us. Well, technically we didn't drop them. We just didn't pick up a option so that we had to drop them. But it's just, you know, what the fuck ever. Yeah, they split, and it doesn't sound like either side was particularly happy with the way it worked out. And, you know, it very much comes across. I mean, the title of the album is very pointed. There's no secret what that's aimed at. And you hear it just, you know, right off, you know, the first, you know, couple of songs right away. You know, they start with, you know, yeah, Taste the Poison, 1 minute 49 seconds. Then, you know, next on the list, you know, is a normal length song. But I mean, with that opening, you know, they have, you know, a couple of shorter songs back in here for the first time. They're starting off with something less than 2 minutes. They really want to, you know, give the impression right off the bat that we're not dicking around here. We're not experimenting. We're delivering what people want. And I think, you know, that is the one reason maybe some people don't champion this album a huge amount, to your point, Albert. In a way, it is them going backwards. You know, that, you know, even if for folks that didn't, you know, love the late 90s stuff, the band was still, you know, tinkering, trying different things. They were exploring. And here it does feel, in a way, if you want to be critical of the album, you can say they went back and kind of did the safer thing. But the band's, you know, very candid about that too. In your book, you know, Barney makes it very clear. It's like, you know, look, a lot of bands, you get to a turning point where, you know, you've been kind of drifting away from your core sound, but at the same time, your audience is going this way. And, you know, they weren't making money at this point. They weren't, you know, having a lot of success with tours and stuff. It's like, you know, we either kind of do what we're known for, or we're going to have to just hang this up and call it a day and, you know, go get jobs at the post office or something. He's like, you know, at some point, you know, you just can't, you got to turn it around. And that's what they do here. And they do it really, really well, which is the saving grace for this album. If they had done a half-assed job of it, or if it sounded too much, yes, you know, like a retro throwback, it probably wouldn't have worked as well as it did. But yeah, they sound revitalized. They sound fierce, but it doesn't sound exactly like it's meant to be part two from any classic album. But yes, the blasting is back. The speed is back. They've got the balance right between, you know, the death, the grind, and, you know, the hardcore influences, you know, that come back into their sound. It's all mixed in the right balance, which to me makes me think back to like Utopia Banished era, when they were really getting that formula and that mixture correct. So yeah, the album has its fans, it has its detractors, and I kind of understand both sides of the equation. But I do like the album a lot, and I don't have it at number 1, but I do have it at number 3. Yeah, I think it's a great return to form from a band where those return to forms don't always work out well, and here they did it right and made a really great album out of it. So I'll put it at number 3. Marty, what are your takes on the sort of comeback for Napalm Death?
A much needed return to form. I mean, it really starts off with a super bright production, which really suits the spirit of Napalm well. The treble, you need to have some of that treble, bring in, highlighting the elements of that gain. Blast beats are back, so is the urgency in the song craft. I mean, even the spots where they lean more killing. I keep saying killing joke, but that's kind of what I feel when I hear that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, there's a vibe with that.
That influence on the song. Next on the list, it's a really cool union of styles, and at this point, as they go, they're getting better at it, and it's starting to really kind of fit within this new, and it feels revitalized with this new urgent songwriting spirit they have going on. The lead off track crushes everything, as does Vermin and Conservative Shithead. It's really Napalm back on track and heading in, for me anyway, a very favorable era of the band. Really favorable era of the band. So yeah, this is my number 7. It sounds bad, but the stuff I have coming up is where the top is leaning for me. So yep, number 7, and that leads us to the year 2002, Order of the Leech, which I was shocked to see that I don't own this.
I do.
Albert's got you covered.
I got it. This is this cover is weird. It's different than the CD version. I actually got this in London in 2004 at some street vendor had it. Interesting times. But yeah. Let's talk about this record. What Alan brought up before about the perception of Enemy of the Music Business as being maybe a little regressive in terms of the material, like the approach to the material. That would be my criticism of Order of the Leech. I find that this is the record where Napalm treads ground for me, where they've got themselves reestablished as a vital, urgent, grinding band, and they managed to perform again at that kind of speed, but the songs just really aren't there for me, like the super memorable ones. There's moments on there, and those moments are like them just like kind of bringing a big Celtic Frost riff to break up a grind section, which is a trick that they were pulling back in 1986, 87, which again for me, like that kind of regressive feel for things. And the production on this record is not quite right. This is Russ
drums.
vocals.
The drums are bad.
The drums are like, they're kind of rough. This is Russ's first foray into taking the production helm. And he will go on to fantastic work with this band. So I can't I don't want to criticize, I don't want to lay the failures of this record at his feet, because I think it's ultimately still the songwriting. And if the songs were better and more memorable, there's like maybe 3 songs I remember from this album. Again, it's not terrible, but coming off for me again, which is like my number 1, this was a huge letdown at the time for me. It was cool in that they actually got to tour the US on this record. They did not tour the US on Enemy of the Music Business. So they came back probably about maybe 6 or 7 months after Order of the Leech was released. I remember seeing them in early 2003. I think they were supporting Nile, something ridiculous. It was like it it helped kind of reestablish a few things. This is record. I believe Jesse plays on it.
Yeah, it's his last record.
He didn't contribute any music to it, and he might not even play on it. He just might be credited as a guitarist. But by this point, his contributions to Napalm had turned to nil. So I'm sure that had some kind of impact, because I know he was still contributing with Enemy. So yeah, this is kind of a to me, this is a hiccup in the rebirth of Napalm, and I have this one at number 15.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alan.
Okay. Yeah, kind of a similar reaction. But before I talk about it, a couple of big picture things I should point out. I only have one ranking left that's not a double-digit number. So, the 21st century part of the catalog is going to be, in the bottom part of my ranking. A big part of that is I'm not as familiar with these albums. This stuff moving forward is stuff where I've had to do some cramming this week to get more familiar with them. So that's why they're going to be towards the bottom. Doesn't mean they're awful albums or I hate them, but yeah, just familiarity and such. It was going to push them a bit lower. But yeah, I would agree with your take on this one, Albert. It's a very intense album. Napalm still sounds very angry, pissed off here. There's an old, when I was in college, one of the local bands had a demo out. They were kind of a crossover style band, and they started their demo tape with this little cartoon, character voice saying, here's some music that just seems to say, I'm angry. I'm very, very angry. And this era of Napalm makes me think of that every single time, that they should have had that little sound clip from the Charlotte Web demo. But what's memorable on here? And, playing it a couple of times and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, they sound pissed off. Yeah, they're, blasting away and all that, but nothing really sticks. This doesn't have, those songs that right away you're starting to feel like, okay, here's a banger, and like this one, catches. It's like, yeah, this is just a set of songs. That's okay, I guess. So yeah, this one, whereas the previous album, it sounds angry, but they sound kind of inspired. Here they sound angry, but just like they're angry at stuff. And they're just kind of yelling about stuff. So yeah, it does start to feel like, here they know this is what will sell. This is what's, getting them back, on the map. And so they're going to do it, but it doesn't feel that inspired or anything. So yeah, I've got this one ranked at 16. It doesn't mean it's an awful album, but it does feel like an album that just, it's just one of many, and other albums from this era are better. Mm-hmm. So something's got to be at the bottom. I feel okay with this one being at the bottom. So, but Marty, sounds like you may have it a bit higher. So what's your take?
To me, this thing, the first hit play on this thing right away. The kick drums on here sound like they're either recorded in a Tupperware container or they're made out of Tupperware. It's just very weird drum sound, but the guitars themselves are burly and mean. It's just a weird combination that whoever recorded it seemed to struggle trying to capture the attack on the kick drums. But the music, it's where the albums leading up to here, they were really digging into the groove elements of their sound. It's on this album, on Order of the Leech, it seems like they've replaced the groove elements with more chaotic or noisy guitar riffs, which makes me, hearing now that Jesse may not have been involved with the songwriting at all. Maybe this is Mitch's contribution kind of maybe Jesse was good at the groove riffs and Mitch was good at the more noisy riffs. Well, Jesse's out of the picture. The guy that, was his counterpoint is stepping to the forefront and trying to figure out how to fill in the gaps that Jesse is leaving. So you got more of a noisy guitar sound and more of a noisy guitar riff ideas. It's kind of leaning towards, this apocalyptic grind thing that I mentioned numerous times that Napalm is about to fall into here or evolve into. I don't think this is a great record. I put it at number 10, but it to me is a transitional record. I think Enemy of the Music business is where they really needed to be, and this one here finds them, mixing a bit more of the noise, the unpredictability of what's to come, which I really like that. I really like more organic, noisy attack of that style of grind, and boy, we're gonna get it here, and I really like where they're going, but this album isn't there yet. Transitional record. It's like we talked about from Enslavement to Harmony Corruption. There was no transition here. Here we're getting a transition where maybe there didn't need to be, but there had to be, because you're losing a main contributor to your sound. So, the other players have to step up and make some changes or do what they do. More of their ideas are going to reach the forefront of the songwriting process where maybe it wouldn't have beforehand. So, yeah, number 10 for me. And we're going on to, I have this one on record.
Ooh.
Code is Red, Long Live the Code. Folds out into a giant poster, which is kind of annoying. The old punk style, the old crass style of but Albert, what are your thoughts on 2005's Code is Red?
Yeah, this is their first studio full length on Century Media. They who they've now been with for 2 decades. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the first full length they did. I guess Leaders Not Followers Part 2. That covers album was the first Century Media release.
Right back.
Yeah. So Code, for me, Code is the first production that I think Russ nails for them. Russ Russell, like the things that, like, the drum sound that was problematic on Order of the Leech is kind of corrected. At least the kick drum sound. The snare is still a little bit iffy, but still it's fine. But man, the guitar sound is like on point on this record. Like and part of it has to do with just like the quality level of the riffs that are being delivered between Mitch and Shane at this point. Lots of that like kind of classic formula of the grinding punk and the Frost breakdowns, just like bringing that back. I think simplifying some of those arrangements, like with Silence is Deafening, the lead track, and then the title track is maybe a little more intricate. The Code is Red, Long Live the Code. I like this record a lot. I think it holds up really well. I think my main criticism of it is that there's maybe too many guests on it. Jamie Jost is a guest on it. Jeff Walker from Carcass is a guest on it. There's at least one more who's escaping me right now, who's also Jello. That's right. Jello's on it, right? That should most obvious one I should have remembered. I like it. Again, I know it's like I'm talking about these criticisms, but I really like the record as a Napalm Death record that I think kind of helped reestablish them here in the States. Century Media, for any ups and downs they may have had as a heavy metal label in America, they have remained consistently in the spotlight, and Napalm did not have that for the previous 2 records, getting licensing deals from Spitfire for a couple, the ass end of their Air contract in the 90s. It was a long time that had gone between like Napalm feeling like a priority for a label in the US before the Code is Red arrived. And I think that you have that nice that nice storm of a label that understood them and gave a shit and had presence and could push them out, them having a really solid album, finding their footing again, because they were this is something that we talk about in that Napalm Death special issue, where we did a Hall of Fame on this record, and Shane mentioned multiple times that he felt like this was kind of a make or break record for the band, that if people didn't give a shit about this record, he kind of felt like that that they would finally get the message and be like, all right, let's just end this. You know, there just isn't an audience for this anymore. So this was kind of their last shot in their minds, and you know, they nailed it. It turned out great, and the relationship with Century Media has obviously continued for 2 decades, and yeah, there's tracks from this record that regularly in the set, and for a band with 16 records, if you can say that about a record, then that record's probably a-okay. I have this pretty high now that I see, and questioning my decision, but I have it at 5, but I don't know where else I'd put it. So 5 it is. Alan.
Right on.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of good points about this one. It was a big deal stateside when this one came out. I remember there being lots of chatter on forums and stuff about, like, for a lot of people, it seemed like this was maybe the first time they were noticing that Napalm was back. Because, it was, getting a push and on a bigger label. You were enemy of the music business. And even Order of the Leech, they didn't have that kind of distribution or reach. Feels like, they dialed back the intensity a little bit on this one compared to the previous 2 albums. But, do have a lot of good tracks on here. I agree with you about the guests, though. It's a bit distracting. I'm never a huge fan of, guest appearances. It's like, that's fine, but that should never be the selling point for a given song or a given album. And my notes on the album, like one of the first things I wrote is Jello and Napalm do not mix. I understand they may have, a shared political ideology or whatever. That's fine, but I do not like the way he sounds on that song. It's just like, no.
That's how he sounds.
Yeah, I know. And, his voice, kind of works in the context of Dead Kennedys material and stuff, those older classic albums. But having him, working vocals into a Napalm album was just like, ugh, no. Somebody just needed to say, cut. Thanks. Here's your check. We appreciate the effort. And maybe we'll put that on a B-side somewhere in the future. Did not care for his contribution there. But yeah, no, like I said, these albums moving forward, I do not have a lot of familiarity with. And, as such, they make up, the lower parts of my ranking. But yeah, still a decent album. And I've got it ranked as one of the higher ones from the Century Media catalog. Actually, no, there's one I have in the top 10 that we'll get to eventually. But this one I've got at number 11, which sounds low, but it's the second highest for me among their Century Media albums.
Okay.
Marty, your take on The Code is Red.
Well, a little different than yours. I love this record, and this is
cool. This
one and the one after it, they could be interchangeable depending on the day or the week or whatever. But I mean, Mitch is fully the main guitar guy now, and there's more chaotic, frantic riff work. I really like this whole era a lot. Napalm, they're back in the fully into the grind frame of mind. They're in their comfort zone again. Barney sounds like he's pushing it super hard on this thing. The songs they're explosive. Yeah, there's Jello, and Jello is Jello, and I love him in the Dead Kennedys, and maybe he doesn't fit in anything outside of the Dead Kennedys, and maybe that's not fair to say, but I don't know. I did like some Lard. The Lard was good too, but I don't know. The songwriting core has united on here in the best parts of all their career to a very urgent grinding force again, which I don't know. This album, the moment I got it, it clicked, and putting it on today, I love how crisp the production is really there. It's vibrant. The songs are urgent. Again, this is they're in this zone moving forward from here on out, which is great. And they keep getting better and better and better. And the reason why some of the newer albums are maybe ranked a little lower than this one, because the first time I heard them was this week. So I haven't had as much time with them, but yeah, this is my number 1 as of today. So
really? Wow.
Code is Red. Long live the Code. I always loved it. I think it's where Napalm, and they kind of get better from here, but I just have more familiarity with this one. So it's where I landed on it this week. Which brings us to 2006 smear campaign.
Yep.
Albert.
I'll show this one off just because it's one of our many
Nice.
possible editions of this record.
Excellent.
We're part of a reissue campaign with it. I won't show you all the cool stuff that's inside that we contributed to it, but it's pretty wild.
Is that a box set? Is that a box set or just okay?
No, it's just that's a single.
Oh, right on.
Yeah,
cool.
But there's cool shit inside. So this record, a little more personal one for me. I was actually in the studio with them for a couple days when they recorded this one. They recorded this one in fucking Wales at Full Studios, which was a studio that was owned by a former member of Hawkwind. I can't remember which one, but it was definitely out in the middle of nowhere, like nowhere. We had to, it was like, 8 miles down a dirt road to get to it. And when you got to the studio, there was this gate the studio was at the bottom of a hill, and it was a studio house. It was just a big house that had, extra rooms and the living quarters for the guy who owned the studio. And at the bottom of the hill was that house. But at the top of it was this gate that you had to open to get through, obviously, and then close behind you. And the reason you had to close this gate is because there were all these cows that were just roaming in open fields. And this, like I said, this is at the bottom of the hill, is at an incline. And what would happen if the gate was left open, the cows would start to wander down this incline.
They're curious.
Inevitably lose their balance and steamroll into the house. So,
wow.
Yeah. So anyway, I just love that. I just have that vision, and I've never seen it. I never saw the cows rolling, hurtling.
I've heard of cow tipping, but this is another level.
These are cow projectiles. But anyway, so this record, Smear Campaign. I like this record a whole bunch. Like Marty said, it is very much in the vein of Code is Red, Long Live the Code. I think what you have with this record, and it's something I talked about way back when we were talking about Utopia Banished and the World Keeps Turning single, this mid-paced Napalm Death banger of a single that they could write, and they would put, there would be at least one or two on every record for an extended period of time. I think you see it with Silence is Deafening on Code is Red, even though it's a little bit faster. But I think here in particular, the song When All Is Said and Done, that's another one of those kind of like template moments where they've just written these not commercial, but still insanely kind of catchy metal, grind, punk, whatever songs that just like are intrinsically Napalm. No one else sounds like that. They have a bunch of songs that sound like that, and no one else does. I love it. I love that. There's plenty of other like rippers on here, like Persona Non Grata. Identity Crisis is really good. Fatalist, Sink Fast, Let Go. Again, musically, it's just a slight revision of what they were doing on Code is Red. I think that the songs overall are on par. You could, as Marty said, it's pretty interchangeable. So for me, I have it at 7. In retrospect, now that we're talking about it, I probably flip it with Code. I was just trying to be, I was trying to have some integrity and not, not let the fact that I was there when they were working on this play into my thoughts on the album. But fuck it, I'll flip them now. But yeah, great record, all about it. Alan, your turn to talk about this banger.
Yeah, so again, one of these albums I don't know nearly as well, but things that do stand out. It does have some bangers on it. Indifference and Identity Crisis. These are songs that still go back and develop really good thrashy riffs that are high energy. These are tracks as soon as they start up, if you were of a mind, you can start moshing around the room to them. Really easy, I think. So there's still good tracks there. Around this point, it feels like Barney does start to change, his vocal delivery some. That you're getting maybe less of his very characteristic growl, and he's going more in the kind of hardcore shouting influenced style moving forward. And it's not that his voice is shot, but it seems like he's maybe just changing the way he wants to deliver. And I think it's been happening a little bit over the past couple of albums, but I noticed it more on this one.
The voice is going to change, and really screaming that way is not in the long run sustainable. It just
you can't do it forever.
Guys like Corpse Grinder, guys like Barney, who his kids started doing this, is probably a laugh. And who would have thought bands 30 some plus years later are still screaming like they were 18 years old and felt immortal.
Oh yeah, it's got to change when you're this far into your
but
career.
he's really worked with it, and it's killer. It's more
he's got more power. He's got more power like this, honestly.
I think so. Anyway, go ahead, Alan.
I mean, it's a different delivery, but it works for the material that they're doing at this phase in their career. So there's some good tracks on it. Again, the albums from this phase, they just rank a little bit lower for me because this phase hasn't really completely clicked with me. It's not bad. It's ranked, I've got it ranked low at 13. I know that the classic stuff I have ranked very high. The mid-90s stuff I'm a little more familiar with, and I like what they were trying, even if it didn't always come together. So that's kind of ranked in the middle. This newer stuff is interesting, but it's going to come at the bottom. So I've got this one at 13, but not a bad listen overall. Marty, your take on Smear Campaign?
This is my number 2. Like I said, I could flip-flop this and The Code is Red, but Smear Campaign, it feels a bit more chaotic, more urgent, more intense than The Code is Red. The songs are really well done. I like the production. Really, they're kind of on autopilot. They've re-envisioned by way of the past, their formula moving forward, and it's needed. It was a much needed change, and this, I think, I would hope they would listen to this and compare it to their wilderness area and realize that this is where we maybe, I don't know, saying should have been all along. It might have gotten a bit redundant. Maybe you need a dry period to really appreciate where you end up at the other side. Hopefully it's an improvement. In this case, it is the rebirth of Napalm Death. It's vital again. It's exciting again, which those middle era period records, interesting, yes, inspired, but not really exciting again. No. And here we are. And you got a 1-2 punch, 2 very good records, exciting, and they make me care about Napalm Death again. We'll just say it that way. And then again, they haven't put out a shit record, but here they're really, their whole career this late in, they're putting out 1 and 2 on my ranking. So it's cool. It's cool that they could revitalize and reconnect and push it to the limit again. It's good. Which brings us to, I consider this the end of the trilogy, really, but Time Waits for No Slave. This came out in 2008.
I think it's 9.
Is it? I could be right. Okay.
I think so. I could trust.
Yeah, it's 2009.
Okay, 2009.
Yeah, my eyes are. I need a bigger monitor. Apparently, 32 inches isn't big enough.
We did another one of these.
Nice.
Decibel pressings. Okay. Let me be frank. The songs are way too fucking long on this album. They're just too.
There's
long.
The sales pitch.
Yeah, they're just too long.
Move those records, Albert.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. No, well, we sold out of all of them. It's fine. Don't worry. I can say whatever I want now. But but no. Dude, it's a Napalm Death record. It sounds like Napalm. It's played like fantastically. The production is spot on from Russ. He's dialed in. He's like 4 records in with them now. It's this, as you talked about Barney's voice, like evolving, like you can hear it a little bit more on this. It's just like there's more power. There's less like kind of guttural death metal. There's like just, it goes from a growl to a scream, and it's like I don't know. I think it's a great transition for him, and I'm all about where he went with it. But to bring it to this moment in 2009, I'm a little conflicted because Decibel did rate this album really, really high. I think it was our number 5 album of 2009. But there's just a couple things about it that just like don't sit right with me. Like Life and Limb kind of sounds like a Meshuggah song. There's more cleans on this one that Barney gives a shot at that I don't think land. I don't know, honestly, for me, besides The Brink of Extinction, which is another one of those like catchy ass like Napalm singles, the radio hit. Like besides that, this doesn't resonate with me. I don't hate it, don't get me wrong. I think it's fucking awesome. But like it just doesn't stick in the way that the records around it stuck for me. So I have this pretty low. I have it at 14, which again is probably a disservice to the quality of the material on it. But again, something's got to go there. So there, yeah, that's where I'm at with that one. So Alan, you may have a different take on this one.
Yeah, I do. This is actually the standout in the Century Media years for me. And again, this is I'm the newbie with this part of the catalog, so everybody listening, take my opinions with a big grain of salt. But yeah, of all the Century Media ones, this is the one that made it into my top 10 right away. This one just everything just stands out a little bit better. You're right about the clean vocals. There are more of those creeping in. And it's not great. So that is a detraction. But the songs here, a lot of them, just had a great, impact right away. Strong Arm feels, like a, just killer opening track. They waste no time just going straight for the jugular. Yeah, and I compare that to like, the opener on the previous album, the Schmarsch, the weird German title instrumental that had this big kind of Wagnerian buildup, which was kind of cool but very odd feeling. And there's nothing like, there's like no bullshit this time. Just here we punch you in the face. Oh, you're still standing? Here, dictate. We'll punch you in the face again. 2 tracks later. Oh, you're still conscious. And you named this one, Albert. Yeah, On the Brink of Extinction, that has such a massive riff. That's just a killer thrash inspired riff. So the album comes out of the gate and it just throttles you. Sounds really good overall, and there's no Jello Biafra ruining a track in the background. There's the one song with the female vocals for a few lines, and I think someone in the chat mentioned before that's Aneka from The Gathering.
She's on Smear Campaign, actually.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. Yep. So there's just it's a good high energy album, kind of a no frills album, but everything sounds pretty bright, pretty strong. And so out of all the Century Media albums, this was the one that connected with me the fastest. So I've got this one ranked at number 6 for Time Waits for No Slave. All right, Marty, your take. You said this is kind of an end of a trilogy for you, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
I feel like this ends a trilogy, and you listen to that Diktat song right up at the front of the album, just super savage blasting, and Barney is just really intense on here. It kind of sizes up the record nicely. I think I can see some of longer tracks. I can see what you're saying here, Albert, but I don't know. They just feel like they're in a zone here.
Can I jump in for 1 second, Marty?
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. That's a really good point. I agree with you. And I think that's one reason I don't have these Century Media albums maybe ranked as high as you and Albert. It does feel like they get in a zone. Whereas, the other album, the earlier phases of their career, stuff's a little more varied. You're not quite sure what's coming. Each album's, kind of changing a little bit more. At this point, we kind of joke about, the thrash bands getting the nuclear blast deal. Kind of feels like, Napalm's got, kind of, the Century Media equivalent of that at this point. Just like, just keep making the good album, don't mess with the formula anymore. Use this much grind and this much death, and just make an album that will make people happy. They are in a zone and it's working well for them, but at least, coming, with first contact with them for me, the albums do start to feel like, okay, this one's a lot like the last one, and the next one's a lot like the previous two. And so that's why I think I've got these ranked a little lower than y'all.
You could say that about the middle era too. They were in a zone there too, but it all depends on what kind of zone you want to be in. As a listener, like I don't necessarily like this zone. I like this zone better. So,
and it could come down to that. Yeah, I think there's more variation on those 4 logoless albums though than you get across some of these albums. But
there's more experimentation for sure.
Yeah. Whereas this, again, if you want to be critical of these albums, you can say they are playing it safe overall. They know this will please the audience. So sorry, but I meant to make that point. And forgot until you said in the zone. I'm just like, oh yeah.
I really have nothing more to add to this other than it just feels like this is the third album in a run that feels like, okay, we've reclaimed the throne. We're back. We're, we are re-earning our grindcore stripes on this later era. And, yes, it's going to keep going from here. Really. I put this at number 5. My least favorite of the 3 in a row here, but, good album. It was cool to I listened to Smear Campaign and Long Live the Code is Red often-ish. I haven't in a minute, but Time Waits for No Slave was the one I spun least of this era. But but that brings us to 2012 with Utilitarian.
Utilitarian. All right. Before I get into that, I need to answer a question from Scott Nick in the comments who wanted to know what I was drinking.
The beer. Yeah.
Yep. It is the High Double IPA from the Great Cigar City Brewing in Florida. This, I didn't even know they did a double IPA version of this until I saw it at the store, so I just grabbed it. And it's a gigantic 19.2 ouncer because
you haven't peed yet, which is a miracle.
I'm good. Don't worry about me. But yeah, since we had 16 albums to get through, I figured I need at least 1 ounce per record to make it.
Right.
All right, where are we? We are at Utilitarian, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Here we are. We got this also. There's also a decibel version of this, if you can believe it. All right. First off, let's talk about the covers. The album covers for the 3 records that precede this, the trilogy, as you describe it, Marty.
Yep.
They're not great. They're not great. They're just kind of great. This one I like. I like this one. This one's definitely more of like a punk rock feel. The black and white, the
old crust days, the crust and the whatever. Yeah.
Like the villain in the suit. Like this is all good. This is on point. I'm a big fan of this. This record, it has a lot of the characteristics of the records from the self-described trilogy, but I think there's more experimentation on this one. They're pushing it a little bit more. There's the John Zorn guest appearance on Everyday Pox with the crazy sax that busts in. That sounds honestly pretty cool. Wolf I Feed is again the Napalm Death single banger that they perfect and just like keep pushing out another awesome like single. If there was extreme metal radio in 2011 or 12, whenever the hell this came out, it would be on it. If Sirius existed, that would have gotten played all the time. Maybe it could exist, I don't know. But anyway, I really like this one. I'm surprised at how low I have it on the list, and that is just symptomatic of how many great records Napalm Death have made. It's not a condemnation of the quality of this one, because this one's actually fantastic. And I remember being blown away by it when it came out. the fact that they could still maintain this level of quality at that point was, 25 years or so, whatever it was, into the career back then. But yeah, I like this record a lot. I don't remember if there's any interesting stories. Oh, okay. This is the record they toured on the Decibel tour, which would have been a couple years or a year or so after it came out in 2013. And I'm going to tell this story. I promise this is not a humble brag, but it's to illustrate a point. Shane asked me to sing The Kill with them on stage on the Decibel tour. And of course, I decided to do this with zero qualifications. And I ended up doing it twice. I ended up doing it in New York and in Philly. And it was a lot of fun. I sang The Kill. I had to rehearse in my car in a parking lot.
From zero, never doing that, to doing it, it's painful, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it really is.
It sucks. Yeah.
But doing it like on stage next to Barney, and like being next to him and hearing him over the mic and seeing like what he does versus like what I was essentially like faking up there. Like, you want to talk about like the sheer force and power, and like, yeah, he could do a cool death metal growl. Obviously, he did a fucking kick-ass Camley. I love the way he sounds on Utopia and Harmony. I'm on board, don't get me wrong. But like what he's doing now, holy shit. It's completely different, and like I don't think people understand.
Oh no.
Growl, a death metal growl. What he does now to me is just a million times more impressive. But I felt like that was a good way to illustrate that point. And again, not a humble brag, but a funny anecdote ultimately. So I have this at number 10. Long story short.
Right on.
Number 10. Yeah. Oh, and don't worry, we weren't letting you get off the stream without telling us about singing with them on stage. For sure.
When is your band? When are you going to be on the front page of Decibel? Little nepotism cover action there.
I don't know. We're hitting issue 250 in a month. Maybe issue 500. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, thoughts on this one? Yeah, it's another good 21st century Napalm Death album. Yeah, again, they're in that zone. They still sound good. They still got it. I don't mean to detract from them by having the albums ranked lower. They still definitely have it and can still deliver. It just feels that, yeah, it's in that vein of, they're becoming consistent. Consistent means you know what you're getting, and it's going to be good. It's not going to necessarily surprise you or, be like, oh, wow, I didn't expect to do that. So, yeah, and that's just, I feel, for me, being newer to these albums, it's, the vein that we're in at this point. As far as the John Zorn thing goes, John can go sit in the waiting room with Jello and, he
could choke his goose out in the waiting room.
Maybe Taylor Swift comes by later and she needs a guest appearance on her album. Why don't you go help her? Go over. There you go. She'll pay you more. There'll be more exposure. No. You won't be fucking up a Napalm Death song. It's a win-win for everybody involved, John. Just over there, sit quietly, and Taylor will tell you when the Eras tour is firing up for part 2. I heard that on the song. I'm just like, what the fuck? Oh, God. Yeah. Nothing against John Zorn personally. I'm goofing off, but
I get the appeal of that experimentation, but I've never. Saxophone is tough for me anyway. And when you're doing that, avant-garde jazz explosion, whatever the hell it is, I struggle. That's all I can hear. It bothers me.
You guys know you understand the whole like Naked City, Painkiller.
Yeah. I didn't like that either.
That's fair. I'm not trying to derail Alan here. I'll make it quick.
I know
There are about 1 billion Napalm Death songs. If they want to have one with John Zorn on it, I think we can get through it, guys.
Oh yeah, no, and I did, and I get
No.
the appeal of it, but it's not good. But it's
All right, fair. Back to Alan.
No, that's a fair point. And
100% agree.
Besides just not liking it sonically, I think the reason that one maybe especially rankled me when they were trying, different stuff, during the logo-less albums, the groovy parts and stuff, it was really an integral part of the songs they were writing. When they have, Jello on, an album or two back, and then they bring in, John Zorn for this, it just feels crammed in there. It's just like, we're putting this goddamn saxophone somewhere, any, mini, miny, here, just jam it in here. And that makes it feel like a gimmick rather than part of the song. And I think that's why it bugged me, with these kind of things. We got a guest in the studio, sing something and we'll just work it in. It's not like, hey, we're going to, bring some more, Swan's influence into our music and really build, songs that, have that vibe. It's like, nope, put the horn in the middle of the song somewhere. It just feels too gimmicky for me. But anyway, did I rank Utilitarian yet? Sorry, Simon, I've got it at 14. And again, it's not that it's a bad album. It's just, it's in a run of albums that, that for me haven't really had time to sink in long-term and differentiate themselves that well. So 14th for this, still some good tracks on it though. They still can deliver the sound. They're just delivering a sound that's a little too samey album to album right now for me. Marty, your take on Utilitarian?
Yeah, the album feels faster, like they're getting faster here, and Barney's voice feels a little frayed around the edges, but it just adds to the color and urgency of his performance. I really like that element of constant action, constant intensity coming at you. And I mentioned, we talked about the sax thing. I won't revisit it, but that was an annoyance. But again, we got through it. It was fine. I'm not a Painkiller Naked City fan either, unfortunately. For me, I must be missing something. I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, this is just what else do I have here notes wise? Oh, that's really it. The band is on track. They're experimenting again a little bit. The noisiness in the guitar stuff. You can tell that at any minute these songs could go somewhere new and exciting, and it gets even better again. It's like we're in another 3 album run here. It's like we're starting another trilogy with Utilitarian, which I'm bummed I don't have the 2 after this, but I'm going to end up getting them because they're really killer. But yeah, this for me is number 9.
Totally fair.
All right, Albert.
All right. Well, next
home stretch.
Yeah, home stretch. Can we get there? We fast forward 4 years, which I believe at this point is the longest gap in between Napalm Death albums, to Apex Predator Easy Meat. As you can see, there was also a Decibel version of this thing.
That's probably long gone, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, actually, what's funny is we did an inventory sweep a few months ago, and we found 3 or 4 copies of a bunch of albums that had been sold out. This is the one Napalm Death record we still have on the site. So if anybody needs to acquire this on black vinyl, which means you can actually listen to it and it won't sound like shit, it's there. It's there on the Decibel site. All right, this record. This is the last album to feature Mitch Harris as somebody who's contributing songwriting to the band and obviously performing on the album. It is, I think, maybe even more experimental than Utilitarian without the aforementioned gimmicks of saxophones and things like that kind of rub some folks the wrong way. I think it's maybe the harshest sounding Napalm Death album in probably going all the way back to Fido. I think it's super abrasive. There's weird experimental stuff that is more in the Killing Joke, Swans like tradition of like things that they used to do when they were like really kind of like branching out back in the 90s. Smash a Single Digit is, I think that's another mid-paced banger from them, even though it's got plenty of blasts in it. It's again super harsh. Production, like I said, is noisier, more abrasive. Cover art, I don't know, maybe, right? It's different.
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 Yeah.
And then the back cover, it's like, you know, keeps it going there. But yeah, I have this at 9, and again, just like Utilitarian, it's a reflection of how impressive their catalog is, not a strike against the quality of the album. I listened to the shit out of this thing for 5 years, waiting for another Napalm Death record to arrive.
Yeah.
And I still like it. I hope to get to hear at least a handful of tracks from it on Sunday. But yeah, it's another really good modern Napalm Death record. To me, it's the close of another chapter. It's the last record Mitch is on. And you know, we'll hear what happens next. But for now, like I said, I have it number 9. So
he's not, isn't he listed on the Metal Archives? He's still listed on Throes of Joy and the Jaws of Defeatism.
He's in the band, but he doesn't write for that one.
It says songwriting on track 12. Well, just one song.
Or just one song, yeah.
Gentlemen.
Guitars, backing vocals. Anyway,
Gentlemen.
we all know the archives isn't always right, but
right.
Anyway.
I mean, I think he plays on a song on it, but we'll get to that.
We'll get there. We're jumping the tracks here. All right. Alan.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, for Apex Predator, they are trying some different things on this one. They haven't connected with me. They are experimenting, so I give them credit for that. And yeah, you know, they're going for, some, slower and, darker sounding passages. I think this one has potential to grow on me, and it just really hasn't had the opportunity to, because I hear things like, the Dear Slum Landlord. It's like, okay, that's a very different direction from the Go In.
Mm-hmm.
Cool idea. I'm not sold on the execution of it. But again, this is a very new album to me. I don't have years of experience playing this one like you do, Albert. Adversarial, now that one did start to connect. I kind of like that one. There's one, maybe actually the lead-off track. They also, are trying, some different things. And as such, I think it gets the album off to a weird start for me. It's just like, okay, we're going somewhere here. I'm not sure. So I have this one ranked very low because at this point, I don't quite know what to make of it. And the experiments don't initially sell me. So I put it at 15. This is the album that over time will either climb several spots because I'll get it, or it's going to sink to number 16 because I'm just never going to get it. I don't know which way it'll go. So interesting new things being tried. I'm glad to see them breaking out of that zone a little bit and wanting to work something in. I just haven't wrapped my head around it at this stage, so it's got to be ranked kind of low. Marty, what do you think of what's happening with Apex Predator?
Well, when I started the journey for this week is Napalm Death discussion, I started with the most recent EP and work backwards, and I was really blown away. It's been a minute. I mean, I had Utilitarian. At the time when I got it, I didn't spend a lot of time with it. I was pretty blown away at what Napalm Death is doing now. They're fully realized. It's just great to see, this older group of guys getting together, really fully realizing what they are and moving the ball forward. The songs are really good. They, in fact, there's a lot of chaos in, it's very imposing sounding grindcore, which I love. I love that. It's the
That's
feeling
a good
of
way
an
to describe it. I like that.
It's very uneasy feeling. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it makes starting with this and then going backwards, it makes these middle era, more commercial sounding death metal albums really hard to be okay with. It just does. I should have started at the front and worked forward, but I started backwards. And when you get that, you know, they're at the pinnacle right now. They're back at the pinnacle doing, you know, crazy, awesome grindcore stuff and the more slick. Anyway, this is the first performance of John Cookie, I believe his last name. I don't know if it's Cookie or Cookie. I think it's Cookie. Is it Cookie? Cook. Okay.
Cook, but his nickname is Cookie.
Okay. I mean, he's credited, according to the archives, as a solo on the album, but apparently that's, you know, I don't know if that's true or not. But he's now a part of the band. He's out touring with them right now. But Mitch is retired, I guess. Don't know.
Mitch is not playing with Napalm.
Okay.
I mean, he actually performed with Earthburner at the Denver Metal and Beer Fest.
Okay.
Back in December. So he's not 100% retired, but as far as performing with Napalm, it's probably not happening.
Right on. Okay. Well, yep, there's that. And again, I find this era very inspiring. And it's funny for albums I heard for the first time this week. This is my number 4. It just it's so exciting over a lot of the stuff that they've done leading up to this. And I think it gets better here on the album that comes after it here. So that brings us to 2020. Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism.
There it is. Is it 2020? It is 2020.
2020.
It is a pandemic record. Record was recorded long before the pandemic, though, and then mastered during it, I think. Anyway, I like this album cover a lot. I didn't know how I felt about it at first. Retrospect,
it's a rough image, but
pretty
you know,
fucking badass.
Yeah.
You know, you talk. I think the way to talk about this album is to start with Apex Predator, and something that you mentioned, Marty, was just how like aggressive it was, and just like almost off-putting in a sense of like, oh wow, like you're kind of taken back by how heavy it is and how extreme it is. And I think for them this far into their career, like to capture that, which was essentially the essence of what like the early Napalm Death and early grindcore scene was all about, like just basically saying this is the heaviest fucking shit you're ever going to hear. And like we are, you know, at this point 24 years down the line from Scum, and they're fucking bringing it like that. Like to me, that's just like, that's why they're the kings, man. Like that they could do that, and it doesn't sound anything like really what Scum was, or the earliest stuff. That it's like that it's evolved, and like that red line that I talked about earlier is still there between all the records, but it's like it got its own identity, and it's not a retread. But anyway, Throes of Joy in the Jaws of Defeatism, an album title I hate because it's too fucking long and I never remember it, and in my head it's just Throes and I don't remember what comes after. However, it's a record I love. It was Decibel's album of the year in 2020. Deservedly so. Wasn't just me who voted for it. I want to make that clear. This is the first record that Shane basically wrote everything on, which I think is, you know, part of the reason there's an extended gap in between, because he really wanted to write, you know, songs as he wrote them, but also wanted to write songs that he thought Mitch would have contributed to a Napalm Death album. So he really like worked his ass off and like created what I think is kind of the ultimate modern Napalm Death album. It's got everything that you would want from those that the trilogy that precedes, and I'm just going with your thing, Marty. Sorry, we're just going to call it the trilogy that kind of precedes, Apex Predator. But
I'm sure that wasn't what it was, but that's how I perceived it.
Right. But I'm rolling with it.
Yeah.
That's what it is now. We've decided.
Yeah.
All right. But like it takes all those elements and just expands on them, takes it in different directions, maintains the integrity of the grind that like they built this whole house upon. And then in addition to that, like the Killing Joke influences that like poke their head out previously, now they are driving songs. They are driving obviously Amoral, which is like later in the record. It's a song Shane sings pretty much the whole song. It sounds like a Killing Joke song, but it sounds like Napalm Death playing a Killing Joke song.
Yeah.
I love it. There's a song, it was recorded during the session and they released it as a single and an EP that preceded the record in that era of, I think it actually came out right before the COVID lockdowns hit. Logic Ravaged by Brute Force. I can't believe I remembered that. But that's also another song that kind of has that Killing Joke vibe to it. So all that stuff is just everything that is Napalm about Napalm is kind of mixed into this record. And I absolutely love it. Despite all that, it's only number 4 on my list. So there you go. Again, that just speaks to the quality of the catalog.
Right on.
So there you go. Alan, sorry. I'm taking too long.
No, you're not.
No, you're fine.
We're still under 3 hours.
All good.
This is about a normal episode length, so we're all good. We're good.
Exactly. Yeah. My impressions with this one, it feels like, yes, they're trying to, follow up on some of those, darker, newer experiments from Apex Predator with this album. But this time they're connecting with me faster. Yeah, again, I said that, I liked the idea of what they were trying on Apex Predator, but it didn't fully click with me yet. Here it starts to resonate a lot faster on tracks like Adversarial, Belly Full of Salt and Spleen. It's like, these are weird tracks for Napalm, but I like the fact that, they're trying something different and weird. And I feel like they're getting pretty close to nailing it here. Maybe they do. And again, I just need to, a little more time for it to all sink in. There was another one I was thinking, I forget which one, but there was another one that again had that same kind of, just overall, very dark tone to it. They're not relying on, it doesn't feel like they're in that zone anymore. They're not fully relying on just balancing the death and the grindcore. They're like, what if we bring in this kind of weird, dark, dial up the swan sound? There was one track that made me think a little bit of like, Sisters of Mercy getting, dumped into the vial there a bit. It's like, okay, that's interesting. That's cool. I'm going to need some more spins to wrap my head around it. But this is one that, I've got it ranked 12, which will seem low, but it's one of the highest ranks I gave any of the Century Media albums. The only ones I had higher than that were The Code is Red and Time Waits for No Slave. So for this era of the band, this is one that I feel like is pretty interesting. And we'll get some more attention and some more spins because I'm interested to see what they're going to do here again at this point. By the time we'd gotten to, maybe like, Utilitarian, no offense to Simon, but there I kind of feel like you almost know what's coming. At this point, you really don't know what's coming, and it feels like Napalm is once again embracing that spirit of experimentation.
Exciting. That makes it exciting. You don't know where the journey is heading. It's more rewarding at the end of it, I think.
Yeah, which is again why I have those earlier albums through the 2000s and 2010s ranked a little lower. They started to become a little predictable. It's why I've got the late 90s stuff ranked a little higher, even if it's a style that folks are going to disagree on. again, it was, Napalm doing their own thing and come up with something different. And it feels like on these last two albums, they are getting there once again. And like I said, I could see Apex Predator may be one of those albums I really do latch onto with more time. But I think Throes is probably the one I would feel, at least, has more immediate impact. So 12 sounds low, but it's an album that definitely got on my radar. And I think it's cool to see what they're doing here. And Marty, I already know where you've got this one ranked, but let's definitely hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, this album, wow, it blew me away. I really like the opening track, Fuck the Factoid. It has a touch of atmosphere to it, like a tremolo and a floating guitar line. It really kind of raises in anticipation of what's to come, and the band doesn't disappoint. Very diverse and interesting collection of songs here. And I have so many notes on this. I'm going to try to skip around here. It's all been covered. Yeah, they've seamlessly united their adventurous and experimental side with the grind. Kind of like what Brutal Truth did, but I think this modern era of Napalm to me is more listenable for some reason. I don't know why that is. Barney sounds great. Shane's bass rattles and clangs with punk-like abandon. Love it. They're decades into their career, and it sounds like a band populated by 20-something-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really amazing. Really good. And John, is that his name? John Cook?
Mm-hmm.
He seeing him live, he's really holding it down. He's the only guitar player. He's crushing it. And I think they got the right guy for the job here. It feels like he understands where Napalm came from. And he might come from more of a punk background too. I don't know. And people are saying Venomous Concept. Yeah, I haven't. There's one band that slipped through the cracks for me for sure. But didn't the guy from Brutal Truth sing for them? Is that yeah?
Kevin Sharp.
God, lost it in the mush. But yeah, this for me is a number 3. It's a number 3 song. Again, I started backwards, moved forwards, and all I wanted to do was listen to this and Apex Predator. Oh, and the EP, Resentment is Always Seismic. That I like the covers on it. The songs were very exciting. I just couldn't believe how revitalized the band sounds. Again, I've been checked out for a minute, so jumping back into the equation, I was like, wow, okay, they're really on fire again, and that's inspiring. It's inspiring.
Yeah, for us old guys, it's great.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you want to add anything in closing here? We've made it through the pile.
We did. We got through 16 Napalm Death albums.
We did.
No, I mean, again, anybody who's made it this far, congratulations, you fucking masochists.
91 of them. 91 of them are at the moment.
But no, this has been a blast. I appreciate you guys having me on and indulging me in this Napalm idea.
Oh no,
and that was a great idea.
You'll be back for Paradise Lost.
Yeah, right. I'm glad
you got to come back for that one.
Yeah, and I'm glad, Marty, that it was able to reawaken the band for you, because it's like, I think that they're still vital, and they're an anomaly for a band this far in their career to be this good. It just doesn't happen. But yeah, they're worthy of your support. They're, like I said, they're one of my favorite bands, so I'm gonna champion them, and you'll see them in Decibel again. You'll see them in other things that we do with the magazine, I'm sure. But yeah, somebody asked if I have any insights into a new Napalm Death album. Yep. I do not. I assume Shane is writing stuff, because Shane is always writing stuff. But they're out on the road right now. And they'll
with the Melvins.
With the Melvins, yeah. So, and hopefully that they get some kind of break for he can write stuff, because I mean, there's another Venomous Concept record that I know has been recorded since the one that we released on Decibel Records, in fact. So he's got that. I mean, was opening this tour with his Dark Sky Burial project. I mean, there's a guy who's just creatively driven this far into his career is wild. But yeah, fucking Napalm Death forever. So that's all I got.
Alan, you have anything you want to touch on closing up?
I just want to say, first off, big thanks to Albert for taking time out of his very busy schedule to hang out with us and cover this. It was a really fun topic. And like I said, it's a band I've been kind of slowly getting more and more familiar with over the past year. So yeah, it was fun to kind of push that, towards the front of the to-do list and, get, at least, passingly familiar with, more of these more recent albums. It's a really interesting band. They've covered a lot of territory over the years. They've never had a serious dip in quality. Again, the worst thing I can say about, these 16 albums is, maybe there's a stretch here and there where, they get a little bit, too, in the zone, but those albums are still good. It's just that, they, sometimes maybe coasted for a little while. If that's the worst sin in their catalog, then they're doing pretty good. And I agree with you all. The fact that they're trying some new things. I may not be completely on board with the new experiments yet, but they're interesting, and I'm willing to give them some more time and see where they go from here. So yeah, cool band, very interesting catalog to work through. Marty, your final thoughts on all of this?
Thanks, Albert. When the floated the idea, I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I want to sit and listen to that much Napalm Death this week, but I was shocked pretty much instantly how much fun it was. It was a nice diversion from what I have been playing. And yeah, it's got me, I'm back on track. I feel like I'm back on track with a band I've kind of lost touch with, even though I had, not too long ago. The Utilitarian isn't that old, but yeah, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun to reconnect and hear where they're at now is exciting. And I'm going to be definitely paying attention from here on out. But yeah, Albert, thank you so much. And folks in the chat, all his links are below. Please go to Decibel and bring your checkbook. And
a lot of cool new books in the Decibel store. A lot of cool new books.
Very much so. A lot of cool stuff. And we appreciate you, Albert, for joining us. And we'll see you again soon, maybe for Paradise Lost.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Appreciate anybody who checks out the magazine or our books, records, fest, tours, all our other bullshit. It is
a lot going on. Yep. Records, tours, fests. Yeah. Never sleeps. All right, everybody. Cheers. Show notes. Oh yeah, Dead Brain Cells. We're doing a battle royale on Wednesday night. We're pitting the debut Dead Brain Cells against their second album, Universe. See which one comes out on top.
Those are two very different albums to pit against each other.
Yeah, they're both good, but I'm team debut. But I do love the second one as well. But anyway,
oh, that's cool.
I don't know, reviews. We'll have a bunch coming up for you. That's still on the plans, probably this weekend. So we'll be here for you next week for sure. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we've dropped here the last couple of weeks. Go check them out on Heavy Metallurgy. Tell your friends. It's been a lot of fun bringing you our opinions. But with that, we're out. Cheers, Albert. Don't hang up. I want to chat for 1 second, and we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Good night, y'all.